4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Tailosive EV live on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, for a very special 420 episode. So many things aligned perfectly. For one, 420s on a Wednesday. Wednesdays normally when we do our EV streams, but also, of course, we have our earnings call today. First one for the new year of 2022, quarter one. Yeah, Mark Spark says they're going to spell Drew on top of the fact. That's what I've heard as well. All of my sources are confirming the same thing. So get comfortable, get your popcorn ready, get your drinks ready, because there's absolutely going to be a fairly long EV stream today, because not only am I going live before the shareholder deck drops, but we've got a ways to go until the earnings call begins. So we're kind of combining shareholder deck reaction with earnings call reaction, and also just doing our weekly EV Q&A stream where I just read the chat and address your guys' questions, comments, predictions, or speculate more, because that's what we do here on Tailosive EV. I'll have an update for the Patreons. Tomorrow we'll have probably our last update on the Tesla fund, which should give you a little bit of a leak that it's a good update. It's an exciting one. They have not released the numbers yet, but they should drop when the market closes, which is typically 1 o'clock Pacific time. And that means in about 13 minutes, they'll drop the shareholder deck. I will react to it live on air. Usually, in my experience, there's actually been more exciting and more useful information within the shareholder deck than there is the actual earnings call. The earnings call usually ends up being a lot of repeat stuff of things we already know, but the shareholder deck is when they update the website and say when things are in production and when things are going on. And there's usually new images and pictures in images they drop during the shareholder deck. Like, for example, last year, it was the shareholder deck that revealed the Model S and X redesign with the yoke and the new display and the updated interior. That was all in the shareholder deck. It was not in the earnings call. So there's a lot of speculation, actually a lot of confusion right now, of people saying, is today the day they're going to update the Model Y configurator with the 4680 batteries and the Giga Texas option, because there's semi-trucks being listed. Oh, it's interesting. I just loaded up the Model Y configurator on my iPad, and look what it did. Page not found. They might be working on the Model Y page as we speak. Let me try that. Is this happening for anybody else? This might be an exclusive. I'm discovering it right now. Okay, go to Tesla's website, click Model Y. I click order now. Okay, now I think it's working. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe the website just broke that one time. It seems okay now, but all right. It'd be interesting if they were updating it in real time. But yeah, like, it would typically drop with the shareholder deck if they were introducing a new model. I don't know for sure if that's going to happen today. There was a lot of people saying that was likely, but sorry, Mike, you do not get a complimentary cup holder for this extended live stream. You do get complimentary Tailosive merch, though, which is not even available anymore. Tesla POV says, when's your delivery date for your Model 3? It still, to this day, has not changed. From day one, it has always said July 7th to August 4th. And I check it every day. I check it pretty routinely because I'm really hoping we get moved up, or, get a more concrete timeline, or get a VIN assigned, or that kind of thing. But it still has not happened yet. So I'm waiting for new information, because I would also love to get a VIN assigned so that I can check Tesla insurance quotes. I don't know what my insurance is going to cost yet. If they gave me a VIN, I could probably figure out what Tesla insurance was going to cost me, but we don't know yet. How about a complimentary mobile charger? Is the existing inventory page loading? I guess I haven't tried that. I can check as well. I test drove a Model 3 yesterday, and now I'm in love. Cool. I'm happy for you, Scott. I hope you enjoy it. Someone was asking, Ghost Tech says, you think it's good or bad earnings? I actually think this quarter is going to be pretty good. I mean, it was a record quarter in terms of deliveries. Not necessarily as high as people were hoping for production, but it was still all-time high. And the other difference from last year is that in Q1 of 2021, there was basically no Model S's or X's delivered. Now there's been like over 14,000 Model S's and X's delivered, and those have fairly high profit margins. Those are high volume, not high volume, high revenue vehicles. So I assume financially this quarter is going to be pretty good. Um, but the Giga Shanghai shutdowns are probably going to eat in to revenue a little bit, but I think that's mostly going to hit Q2 because it was really only closed for the last, I think it was like 4 days or five. The last 4 or 5 days of Q1 were hit by the shutdowns, whereas there's like a solid 2 weeks of Q2 that have been shut down because of the zero COVID policy and all that. And they have started to resume production, but it's at limited capacity. I believe Giga Shanghai is now at like 40% or 50% run rate, what it used to be. So it's not made a complete recovery yet. Existing inventory is still there for me. It still works on my end. I'll check for new Model Y inventory. Maybe I should check Texas for new Model Y territory, but yeah, I don't see anything different on that side of the website. It was interesting that I got a failed prompt when I was loading up the Model Y configurator. I'm trying to repeat that now, but it's not happening. Anyway, what time is the call? So basically, it should be at 2:30 Pacific time, 4:30 Central time, which means 5:30 Eastern time. And unfortunately, they don't want to move up the time a little bit. It would be nice if they had the 4:20 earnings call at 4:20 p.m. That would be perfect. Tesla POV says, I have Model 3 rear-wheel drive LFP, and you will love the 100% charging daily. It's so stress-free. I'm super pumped for that. In fact, the more I read and the more delivery videos I watch and the more people are talking about it online, like, I just haven't driven a Tesla in a while. I can't remember. I think I drove Mike's Model Y like 6 months ago or 8 months ago or so, and it wasn't even very far. I think I drove it like a mile or 2 miles. We were just like picking up some food and driving back home. But it's just been a while since I've been in a Tesla or driven a Tesla, so I'm like itching to, like, I'm ready to go. I'm getting more and more impatient. I've been sent Dogecoin, but no, I did not buy any myself. Let's see. Regards from Malta and Europe. Oh, thank you, Ivan. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, in case you're wondering, we try to start the live stream before the shareholder deck drops because in my experience, that's where the most interesting stuff is. And I can show that on stream. You can watch it with me. And then we can kind of read the shareholder deck and go through it, look for any updates or look for new information. And then we'll speculate a little bit more, talk about Q&A, and I'll answer your questions or speculate on what you guys are thinking about, and then we'll react to the earnings call at the end. So it's going to be a longer stream, but it only happens once a quarter, so we don't get to do this as often. But I'm excited because finally we should have some updates in the shareholder deck surrounding the production versus in construction. You know, I feel like we'd be getting closer to Cybertruck production if they label it as under construction, whereas all the past shareholder decks have listed the Cybertruck as in development. And Model Y should be in production now since they've started deliveries, technically, even if it's just to employees. So Hopium from Mike in the Woods says, update on Cybertruck production target. Any type of new Cybertruck information would be great, in my opinion. Like, I think setting expectations right and early is better than later because you're just going to tick off a ton of people if you ignore the updated changes to the Cybertruck. Like the truck at Cyber Rodeo has a lot of differences from the Cybertruck that is still listed on the website. So I think they should update that. I think if you have a target price in mind, then telling people what you expect the Cybertruck to cost is important, as well as, in my personal prediction, I was kind of sad reading a lot of the comments, not based on how people were responding to my video, but more so based on how they were responding to the speculation and the prediction, which is that if 4680 production is limited and they want to maximize production output to reach demand, then I don't think Cybertruck is going to start with a high-range model. I think it's going to start with like a 300-mile range quad motor, $100,000 variant, because Tesla has seen from the electric pickup trucks on the market now, you can sell a high-price pickup that's electric for 190, like a high price vehicle. It doesn't, essentially what I'm saying is you don't have to have a 400 or 500 mile range pickup truck on your first try. It's not necessarily that Tesla can't find a way to do it. It's just that they don't need to, because you could build more Cybertrucks if you just had less batteries per truck. Yes, they will miss out on a huge chunk of their Cybertruck reservations, because a lot of people who ordered the truck were hoping for something good at towing, something that would have high range and be better in the winter or towing cross country. And I think Tesla knows that they have enough demand for the truck that it's okay if it can't do that. It can't do those things, because even the Hummer, which I think is ridiculous, I think the electric Hummer is really stupid. That's over $100,000, barely goes over 300 miles per charge, and I don't think the Hummer's a better product than the Cybertruck. I think the Cybertruck will have a great off-roading capabilities, a great suspension system. It'll have the crab walk, it'll have the rear wheel steering, but it will be far more efficient than the Hummer in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of aerodynamics. I also think the Cybertruck is more durable. The exoskeleton has become iconic, and it's grasped this huge section of the community that is really, really passionate now about the Cybertruck. Plus, it will just be the first electric pickup truck that can supercharge, which instantly gives it a ton of advantages over all other electric pickup trucks, because it'll actually be able to utilize the best possible charging network. And just for those advantages alone, and the fact that it'll probably have a bigger bed than the Rivian and the Lightning and the Hummer, it's like it's got its fair share of advantages. It doesn't need to beat the other trucks on range or price, just like the Model Y does not beat other crossovers on range or price. Well, it probably beats them on range, but probably not the all-wheel drive, though. Like the standard range Model Y coming out of Giga Texas, which is rumored to be $60,000, 279 miles of range. That's what they're starting with. And I mean, like, Ioniq 5 can beat that in range with the rear-wheel drive, and it can definitely beat it in price. But that doesn't mean it sells better, because people want the Tesla, and the Tesla tax is a real thing. I might need to do a video on that. Like, just like how people complained about Apple having a Apple tax, I think that Tesla has a tax in regards to you're buying into this company with a really good ecosystem, with the best software, with the best autonomous driving system in place, with the best charging network. And that just sets it apart from everything else, even though range may be better on other models or price may be better on other models. Range is what sets apart Tesla from the competition. Less and less. I mean, Tesla does not have the longest range EV on the market. That's Lucid now. Does it mean that Lucid makes a better EV? No. Does it mean Tesla's in trouble? No. Tesla's still selling every car they make, and Tesla's making far more cars than anybody else is, but they're not the best at range. The ID4 goes 270 miles and is much, much cheaper than the Model Y. And the standard range Model Y is rumored to start at 279 miles, so it's not really a big difference. I mean, it's probably better efficiency, which is what I'm expecting with the Cybertruck. I think of all electric pickup trucks, the Cybertruck will probably be the most efficient, but that doesn't necessarily make it the cheapest. Just like the cheapest Model Y right now is $63,000, but it's outselling the ID4, which is like $20,000 cheaper than that. It's outselling the Ioniq 5, which is substantially cheaper than that. So it's like Tesla's not winning right now in the crossover market when it comes to affordability, but they are winning in total deliveries, because there's just that Tesla tax. It's a real thing. People are willing to shell out the extra money to make sure they get a Tesla. It's the value, it's not the cost. It's like the what you get. Tesla somehow separates itself from all competitors by just making a vehicle that's so different and so software focused, and just has this brand reputation that is very different from all the other companies. Sorry, I haven't seen Frank Stephenson's video on the Cybertruck, no. Carlos says Cybertruck is so future-proof it will still look good in 50 years compared to all other truck EVs in 10 years. Yeah, it's very subjective, but I agree with you, yeah. I personally think the Cybertruck is in its own class. Like, it's called a truck, so we compare it to other electric pickup trucks, but it feels like design-wise and just the way it looks is so drastically different from all other pickup trucks that, yeah, it's like, it's kind of timeless in a way. But yeah, it is 1 o'clock, so the shareholder deck must be dropping in the next couple minutes. Keep in mind, it never drops like right exactly on time. So I'm refreshing, and I will show the web page as soon as it updates, and we can look at it together. But so far, it's not loaded for me yet. Um, why the heck they say the delivery will happen in March and then push it to June? Stop making AI robot. First, start using AI in telling the correct delivery date. The problem with delivery dates is it's not extremely easy to predict because a lot of it is dependent on, for one, production, but also who takes delivery of what. When you have people constantly putting in their orders, backing out on their orders, going in again, or it comes time to take delivery and then they back out and say, never mind, I don't want this model. Or there were people I was just seeing on Twitter, which is just the documented cases of it. I'm sure there's more of it going on outside of Twitter. But even on Twitter, people were like, I ordered this Model Y and I'm hoping to get it from Giga Texas. And then they find out Giga Texas was making standard range and they're like, oh, wait, that one sounds cheaper. I want to get that one. So they back out on their order, cancel their reservation, and come back in again. And that is constantly reshuffling up the delivery dates because Tesla's thinking, oh, we're going to deliver this many cars, and then someone backs out, or there's a logistics holdup because a semi truck, gets held up, or that's happened to Dirty Tesla. He was told that his delivery day would be on a certain day. He showed up, and they were like, actually, our truck driver, got a flat or didn't get to where he needed to be at the right time, so your car's not ready yet. So it's very much dependent on tons of variables and a ton of people within this infrastructure delivering cars all across the country, and it's fairly difficult to predict. So it's constantly fluctuating, unfortunately. But I don't think the AI robot is stealing from that. I think those are completely different sections of the market, of the business. I don't think the people who ensure the estimated delivery window is accurate are the same people working on the Tesla bot. I think they're just completely opposite ends of the business. Slink says, glad I ordered right before the price increases in March. On top of that, I hope I still get the mobile connector. Yeah, if you ordered right now, what Tesla seems to be saying, both in employee emails as well as what was it? My support agent. I was texting the guy that told me, reach out anytime if you have questions about your order. I was like, is my car coming with a mobile connector? And at first he said, like, yeah, I think so, but we have no updates to report at this time. And I sent him Elon's tweet. I was like, what does this mean? And he was like, it doesn't mean anything. Elon's just tweeting stuff. So I'm like, I can imagine that the people on staff at Tesla who work for them are probably so annoyed and frustrated whenever Elon goes on a tweet tangent and it throws off everything, because then everyone rushes to Tesla customer support with questions and they're like, we haven't been told this. We don't know this yet. So I think that was really frustrating for them just by that one tweet Elon made. And also the website updating prematurely. But now my support agent is telling me that all orders after April 17th will not include the mobile connector. But if you ordered your Tesla before April 17th, it will still include a mobile connector. I still think this could have been handled much better, especially with like performance Teslas that deliver fairly quickly. If you ordered a performance Model Y right now, you could get it potentially within 6 weeks or so. So those people ordering their car in the fact that the configurator has still not been updated, there's people that probably have put in their order since 3 days ago that think they're getting a mobile connector and they are not, which is a bit frustrating. So the earnings call, we got another 90 minutes till the earnings call starts. I'm still refreshing, waiting for the shareholder deck to come up. It never goes up right on the exact minute at 1 o'clock, but that's when the market closes, so that's usually when they start updating the shareholder deck. It says people in the near term taking delivery will get one. They are still working on the plan for the backlog. I didn't see the WeChat, but I just know that the support agents and I saw a company email somewhere. I don't know who it was, but they had an email go out to Tesla employees specifically that worked in customer support, and they said, tell people that if you've ordered your car after April 17th, it won't come with a connector. Very Long Claw says it's up. Let me see if it's... Oh, it is. Okay, it is. Switching over to the screen share now. Hope you guys can see this right like that. All right. Shareholder deck. Here we go. Q1 2022. Operating cash flow less capex of 2.2 billion. Wow, my goodness. 3.6 billion dollar gap operating income. Expansion of our production capacity is one of our decision making. In the past 2 months, we began deliveries of Model Y from Giga Texas and Giga Berlin. At the same time, we are putting significant efforts into in-house cell production, raw material procurement, and supplier diversification. Another record quarter for Tesla by several measures, such as revenue, vehicle deliveries, operating profit, and an operating margin of over 19%. Wow. Well, financially, it sounds pretty dang good. Production and delivery started from Berlin in March and from Texas in April, which, again, I believe is still just employees. Growth in vehicle deliveries, increased ASP, that's good. Growth in vehicle deliveries, increased average selling price, of course, that makes sense. All the prices have gone up. They've changed the wording here. Interesting. Okay, Cybertruck still says in development. Dang it, I was hoping it would say under construction, but now it's saying early ramp. That's new wording. Before it used to say, I guess it does say production. So nothing's under construction at this point. And they haven't decided where they're going to build the Semi and Roadster yet. Okay, I got to read some of this. We began Model Y deliveries from our new factory in Austin, Texas at Cyber Rodeo. We delivered the first vehicles with 4680 in-house made cells. Single-piece front body castings and structural packs. This is an important milestone. Later this year, we expect Gigafactory Texas will be able to produce Model Ys using both structural with 4680 cells as well as non-structural packs with 2170 cells. What? Why? What? I'm confused by this. They want to build 2170 Model Ys from Giga Texas, though? Like, that's interesting. That seems like a step backwards, but maybe the 4680 is not what they want for long range or something. I don't know. That's weird. Okay, while weekly production rates were strong in Q1, spike in COVID cases in Shanghai resulted in a temporary shutdown of our factory as well as parts of our supply chain. Limited production has recently restarted. We continue to monitor the situation closely. Like I expected, they didn't want to talk much about the shutdowns. But yeah, I guess they put early ramp there because they don't want to say what the current run rate of Berlin and Texas is, which is a bit of a bummer. I'm sure a lot of people wanted to know about that. Okay, Europe says production at Berlin started in March 2022 using non-structural packs with 2170 cells for the start of production. Gigafactory Berlin will be able to produce Model Ys using both structural with 4680s and non-structural. Okay, fair enough. The day after Super Bowl. Wait, what is this? Vehicle gross orders in the U.S. Whoa. Is this the first time they've reported orders? The day after Super Bowl. That's hilarious that Tesla did not spend $1 on the Super Bowl, but look at how many orders they got. That's amazing. Let's see. 4680 isn't the end-all be-all sell. Also alleviates 4680 demand for future products like Semi, Cybertruck, and Roadster. I guess so. But that does squash the rumor that they could do 2170 structural. I know there were a lot of people thinking they would do structural battery packs with 2170 cells. This, I think, is fairly obvious that they don't plan on doing that, at least right now. But it seems odd that, if they even would consider doing that in the future, that they would emphasize one day Giga Texas will build non-structural Model Ys, but they're not right now. That makes me think that even the long-range Model Y is going to continue using 2170 cells. The weird thing about that, though, is it just implies that they have excess 2170 cells that they want to keep ramping for Model Y production, right? Like, I would have thought 4680s would have continued to ramp, sure, continue to make the standard range, but eventually, once Giga Texas catches up, that would switch up to, what's it called? 4680 long range. And that would take over long-range orders. And I thought Fremont would just handle LFP Model Ys, but that doesn't sound like the case at this point, which is kind of interesting. You know what's funny? I got to read this here. Sorry. I'm far more interested. It says LFP, so I need to read this. Oh my God. Look at operating margin. Margin was already the highest in the industry right here in Q4, and now it's continued to go up. Okay. Diversification of battery chemistries is critical for long-term capacity growth. To better optimize our products for their various use cases and expand our supplier base, This is why nearly half of Tesla vehicles produced in Q1 were equipped with a lithium iron phosphate battery containing no nickel or cobalt. That is amazing. That means that... No, that doesn't sound right. Okay, you know what it probably is? It's likely the fact that the standard range Model Y and the standard range Model 3 in China are by far the most popular models. Like, those have to be selling incredibly well. Otherwise, this is crazy that Tesla's saying nearly half of their vehicles in the first quarter were built with LFP. There's only one Tesla with LFP in the US. Literally just the Model 3 rear-wheel drive. That's the only one that's still built with LFP. No Model Y in the US is currently built with LFP. So either the standard range Y and 3 in China are selling incredibly well, or the Model 3 rear-wheel drive that I've ordered is insanely popular in the US. More popular than they make it out to be. I guess Hertz did order a ton of Model 3s, but... okay, currently LFP batteries are used in most of our standard range vehicle products. Okay, see, that wording has changed. They used to say all their standard range. Now they say in most of our standard range vehicles. That's probably because now the 4680 Model Y is technically a standard range vehicle without LFP. As well as commercial energy storage applications. Have they mentioned that before? I knew they wanted to use LFP in energy storage, but I don't recall them saying they had actually hit it. As a result of our energy-efficient motors, a Model 3 with an LFP battery pack can still achieve a 267-mile EPA range. That's funny that they choose 267 because on the website, if you choose the Aero wheels, it says 272. So they chose the LFP model with the less efficient wheels to reference on the website, which is kind of interesting. I had no clue it was nearly half, though. Like, I knew it was becoming more popular, but that's insane. Yeah, vehicle software, of course, customized the color of their vehicle, yada yada, brought Disney Plus to more countries, improving charging time estimation accuracy. That's all good. I'm excited to get to the pictures here. Energy storage deployments increased by 90% year over year. That's pretty good. 846 megawatt hours. My God. Wow. Driven by strong Powerwall deployments. I hope Powerwalls are LFP. That would be a good idea. Less efficient wheels do deliver quicker, but if they're trying to brag about how good the range is on their LFP battery, I would list the higher range number, not the lower one. Solar deployments decreased. Whoa, oh, that's not good. By 48%. This reduction was caused by import delays beyond our control on certain solar components. Solar roof deployments continue to grow year over year. Wow, that's a shame that solar's not doing too good. I mean, energy storage is arguably more important, but yeah, 48% decline in solar. Not great. Okay, product is the only time we hear about Cybertruck, but they never say anything. The pace of production ramps in Austin, Berlin will be influenced by the successful introduction of many new product and manufacturing technologies in new locations. Factory ramps take time. Giga Austin, Giga Berlin will be no different. We are making progress on the industry. I've seen that for the past 18 shareholder decks. They've all said we're making progress on the industrialization of Cybertruck, which is currently planned for Austin production subsequent to Model Y ramp. All right, let's look at some pictures. We got our first Model Y deliveries. Oh, that's a good shot. I like that. There's the body shop. This is all Berlin. Yeah, Giga Texas was quite a celebration. I was pumped watching that live stream, and I wasn't even there. It was just amazing seeing the deliveries begin and the light show and the drone show. So this is Giga Texas body shop. Ooh, those are cool. This is way better looking than the other chart that they showed at Battery Day. This is like a 3D well-lit model. Solar never did good, I guess. 171 pieces of metal highlighted. 2 pieces of metal highlighted. Yeah, that's the Austin-made Model Y. 1,600 fewer welds. I knew that they did this, but it's just cool to see the color differences make it abundantly more obvious. See, when is Model 3 going to get this treatment, right? Yeah, that chassis comparison is beautiful. Yeah, net income. Wow. Operating cash flow in the billions, free cash flow. Yeah. Pretty dang good. Because especially as it goes up throughout the year, it slowly increases. And Q1 is starting way up here. Pretty dang good vehicle deliveries. There's not that many pictures, were there? Yeah, normally they have more pictures than that, but still, sounded like financially a pretty dang good quarter. I expect the shutdowns will impact Tesla Q2 more so than Q1. Um, but not a terrible amount of new information, unfortunately. I guess other than the 2170 thing, that's actually what I'd like to talk mostly about. Um, we plan to grow our manufacturing capacity as quickly as possible over a multi-year horizon. We expect to achieve 50% average annual growth in vehicle deliveries. The rate of growth will depend on our equipment capacity, overall operational efficiency, and the capacity and stability of the supply chain. Our own factories have been running below capacity for several quarters as supply chain become the main limiting factor, which is likely to continue through the rest of 2022. Yikes. That's discouraging. Yeah, they got services and other gross margin. That's good. Other gross, yeah, the gross margin is turning profitable on services. Wow, that's actually really good. Um, that's probably the most exciting new information to me, though, is that nearly half of Tesla's vehicles are LFP. That's quite a bit. That's a lot. Um, let's see. Our team continued to work on reducing disengagements of FSD beta, particularly focused on unprotected left turns and smoothness of the ride through reduction of slowdown events. We're aiming to release FSD beta to all U.S. full self-driving customers before the end of this year. Initial release of FSD beta to some customers in Canada started in March. I know there were a lot of people hoping for that. Market share of Teslas by region. Wow, that's a lot. It's going past the charts. 2.5% market share. That's pretty dang good. Yeah, I was hoping to see this status update to under construction. That would have made me think we're getting closer, but because it's not, I'm not personally convinced Cybertruck will deliver next year. Um, it's possible. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's I'm not like 100% certain. I'm not even going to say likely. Yeah, comparing this update to last year's Q1 shows the growth they've achieved. Yeah, tremendous growth year over year. That's that's probably the most surprising news, though. I mean, I knew it made sense, but the fact that I don't think Tesla's planning on building 2170 cells. So later this year, they want to import 2170 cells to Giga Texas. So it's like the 4680 is going to be primarily for standard range Model Y. And I'm also very surprised the shareholder deck has dropped and the Model Y configurator has not updated. Does anyone else find that bizarre? Like, deliveries started weeks ago now. That was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? It was April 7th. Yeah. It's pretty great that Tesla's operating margin is over 19% though. That's pretty insane. Yeah, quite a drop in solar, but over 14,000 Model S and X deliveries. That has got to be good. Um, Mike in the Woods says Model Y 4680/2170 split makes me wonder if they want to keep max Model Y production while also piloting Cybertruck production. Could be, but it's also reaffirming me of my concern that the Cybertruck will not start with a high range option. Because like, why would you want to start manufacturing 2170 Model Ys at Texas? You know, that that statement right there is making me think that Fremont in Texas are actually going to build the same Model Y. Like, they're both going to build non-structural 2170 long-range Model Ys, and the 4680 Model Y is probably going to stay as a standard range option for the foreseeable future. Which, the margins are good. They're selling at high volume, and the profitability is there. Maybe because it's a structural pack, Tesla feels like, okay, well, if Model Y demand starts slumping, then we'll have plenty of margin to eat into if we want to lower the price of the standard range over time. But that's fascinating to me because it implies that essentially Tesla is convinced that the margins are good enough with the long range 2170 equipped Model Y that even if demand started slumping and they needed to increase orders, they would rather just have two factories ramping production of the long range Model Y, the exact same Model Y that's being built in Fremont. They just keep building those at two locations, and then Giga Texas will cover um, the East Coast, and Fremont will cover the West Coast. Um, but yeah, the limiting factor on Twitter is bringing up the exact same thing. Um, let's see. If Tesla can design a structural pack so that it takes minimal retooling to switch between a structural and a conventional battery pack, it would make the process of upgrading from a conventional built around the 2170 seamless. This may be an indication that my assumptions around what constitutes structural are correct. Um, I'm not sure how that makes his assumption correct, but yeah. I love this. Probably my favorite chart or photo in this whole thing was the chassis differences. Where did that go? Did I misplace it? Yeah. This looks great. It's kind of information we already knew, but it's showcasing how many components they eliminated. Mike in the Woods says, I'm thinking they want to have the 4680 and 21 cell usage invisible to the end user. I think so too. Yeah, like they definitely didn't want to bring up on the website, which I think they should, to be honest. Maybe they don't because they're worried that too many people will go with the LFP models, but I think they should clarify on the website when you're buying an LFP. At least clarify what the battery chemistry is if the charging habits are going to be different, right? Like, I mean, maybe they would rather you buy the long range and they don't want the long range to look like a worse deal. But I feel like if you're buying an LFP Tesla, they should clarify, hey, this is a battery that you can charge to 100% every day. Whereas if you select the long range option, it says this is a battery that you probably want to charge to 80 or 90% every day. But maybe that would make the long range orders look like a bad deal. I would love a Texas built Model 3, but that's just me being greedy. It's not greedy. It's very logical because I'm right there with you. If you could apply these single piece castings on the front and rear to this design, which is overall smaller and probably lighter, we could get a very efficient LFP equipped Model 3. But there's so many people buying the Model 3 already, it just doesn't make sense to shut down the production line. So I'm right there with you, Scott. I would love if they made updated 3 on the internal side of production. But yeah, it's making me think that Tesla is definitely like actively trying to make sure that people realize the long range Model Y coming out of Fremont is not like dated hardware. This is not something that is going to become obsolete in a couple months when 4680 ramps up. That's probably the biggest bit of new information. I know I've said that already, but I just keep thinking about it now. I'm like, that is not how I thought Giga Texas was going to ramp. Just being completely honest, I thought the plan was for Fremont to handle lower range, you know, LFP Model Ys, and Giga Texas would take over performance and long range once it ramped up enough. But it was just starting with standard range because, they don't want it to sell at super high volume. Um, Hugo says, shouldn't pricing be cheaper if there was less parts going into the Model Y? I was thinking 40 to 50K would be good. It is cheaper for Tesla. That doesn't mean it has to be cheaper for us because, again, demand is off the charts right now. There is so many people ordering Teslas. And, I mean, look at this. The day after Super Bowl. I wish they would give us an actual number here. They're giving us a little bit of data, but not too much. They're like 0. This is nothing. This is something. How many orders did you get on Super Bowl? I don't want to say how many we got, but there's a lot. Future product, Model 2 or van. I don't think it's happening anymore. Where did you see future product? Oh, on this page? Yeah. This has been there for like a year and it still doesn't. We have not determined when a future product will eventually be built. It's like, I don't even know why they have this tab here. It's useless. Tesla has 35% margins, but plan to charge for mobile connector. Right. Well, if you look at Elon's wording, I don't think it was most about margins that they're not including the mobile connector. That his logic was that it was more about, he claims, I've seen data that says otherwise, but he claims that usage of the mobile connector was very low. So in their mind, it was just wasteful to include it and to keep building them and to keep shipping them with every car, because by his logic, not very many people are using the mobile connector. Now, Tesla Scope has the data of around 9,000 Teslas, and he said, in Tesla Scope's data said that 62% of all vehicle charging was done through the included mobile connector. So I don't know what he's talking about. If the argument is margin, it's a very, very small thing to get hung up on, because Tesla in the past, like overnight, they'll up the price $1,000, or they'll up it with the latest round of Model Y price hikes. They upped it like $3,000 overnight. So that's what most of the securing higher margins things are for Tesla. Is like, we're gonna increase the price $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000. The mobile connector, they're not saving that much by not including it. It's not really securing more margins. They're probably saving, I mean, they say they're going to charge $200 for it, but that does not mean, let me be clear, that does not mean it costs $200 for them to build it. It probably costs more like $100 or $150 for the parts and manufacturing. But yeah, they're saving like at most $200 by not including the mobile connector. So if they wanted higher margins or less people ordering cars, they could have just upped the price another grand, which they've already done a dozen times in the past year. So I don't know why that's like securing margins, but the main reason is just that, I guess, for whatever data Elon is looking at or something, he's convinced that not very many people use the mobile connector. I personally disagree based on the data we've seen. I don't know what Elon's definition of super low is, because he said that usage of the connector was super low. I I don't think 60% is super low, but I can get the argument behind, like, okay, maybe if 40% of all the mobile connectors we send out aren't being used, there's some excess capital, or there's some wasteful spending or manufacturing that doesn't need to be there. But okay, even if he's right, even if they say, okay, we don't want 40% of mobile connectors not being used, then they should have updated the configurator to clarify when you're ordering a Tesla without one. That should be an option at checkout that says, they're like, okay, do you want a mobile connector with your car? Just click this little box, and that updates it to be an extra $100 or an extra $200. But they just getting rid of them and then not saying who has it and who doesn't, or when this change is going into effect, and not being clear about that, is completely unnecessary. Even with demand super high, there's no need to hide that kind of information. It's just frustrating to people. Especially, it's rude if the data is showing, I'll round down a little bit. Tesla Scope had 9,000 Tesla vehicles data on file. Let's round down and say it's 50%. Okay, so 50% of mobile connectors aren't used. If 50% of people are using them, though, and they would like one, but they're out of stock on top of that, you can't even order the mobile connector separately, that's annoying. That's unnecessary. Like, you could really be clear on that, or say, like, we'll remove the mobile connector once the mobile connector is back in stock. We'll remove it from the included deliveries. There's just so many better ways they could have handled it. It should be at least an option to include it, unchecked box, or a discount for the home connector. Yes, I very much agree. Even if it wasn't a discount, I think that would have been a better way to do it. Just to clarify, hey, you're not getting one, and you are getting one if you ordered. They have been a bit more clear now, but it still took like 2 or 3 days before the support agents even knew what to say. Is Optimus a futures product or broker? I don't see a product. No, I don't think they're referring to Optimus at that stage, but we all know that is a hogwash. I'd put a considerable amount of money on supply issues, not low usage. Right. I could get that. Like, there's a bunch of shutdowns going on in China, and I don't know specifically where the Tesla mobile connectors are built, but I would not be shocked to find out that wherever the mobile connector is built, maybe there's a shutdown, so they're low in supply. But it's just weird that Elon would use the argument that the usage was low, because I I don't agree with that. And I don't know, maybe he's looking at data that we're not seeing, but any type of community collected data all shows mobile connector usage being fairly high. Um, all of the I haven't found a poll anywhere that says the mobile connector usage is under 50%, which I would hardly consider 50% low. That's like half and half. But even so, if you're there's some people that were theorizing maybe it's limiting deliveries because like if mobile delivery supply is low, but you're building more vehicles than there are mobile connectors, that would kind of slow down how many vehicles you could deliver. So if they're like, hey, only 50% of people are using the connector, let's just get rid of it and then we can deliver more. I can get that argument as well, but still, I think the configurator should have been updated so it's a bit more clear. Um, let's see. It's because of supply chain. They don't have enough and don't want to stop shipping cars because of it. That's a theory. That's a speculation side effect, James. It's not a confirmed thing because we don't have the actual information. But that's not, regardless of if it's true or not, that's not the argument Elon used, which is why I'm confused by his wording. I just love that people are saying if you want one, just buy one. I know it's so. Yeah, that frustrates me too. When people are like, "It's not a big deal, just buy one." It's like they don't have any, which is kind of annoying. Assuming mobile connector costs them $50 per cord and applying that to their current delivery numbers this quarter at a cost to include the cord over a usual quarter, that's $15 million spent on a cord. I suppose, but again, if people are using it, I get it. Um, there's a lot of money spent on all of the parts that go into the vehicle. There's a lot of airbags not being used, but that doesn't mean take them out. Same thing with the key card. I don't want to give Tesla ideas here, but yeah, there's all kinds of things that don't get that much use, but are very, very nice to have when you have them. Like, we're waiting on windshield wipers to show up. Well, it doesn't rain too much in Death Valley, California, so if we deliver vehicles to Death Valley, let's just not include windshield wipers. It's one of those things that, for me specifically, since we're waiting for we've got less than an hour to go. Sorry. Whoa. We've got less than an hour to go before the earnings call begins, but we've kind of went through the shareholder deck now. My specific example as to why I was frustrated by this, this is anecdotal, I know, but the reason I was frustrated was because I already have installed, because I was told this is how Teslas work, that it comes with some kind of mobile corded connector, and that's how Teslas have been delivered for the past 10 years. I have a NEMA 1450 outlet installed, and in preparation for our vehicle, we bought the NEMA 1450 adapter. So I know where I'm going to plug in the mobile connector, and then when we go on a trip, as soon as we get the car, we want to take a trip to my parents' place out of state. We want to drive all the way up there, and yes, I'm going to take the mobile connector with me so that when I park at their place, I can top off and charge it overnight. I don't need to supercharge, but it's a long drive. It's going to be like almost 15 hours. It's going to be a very, very long road trip. And at the very end of the road trip, if my car is, obviously getting low, if the car is getting down to 10%, 5%, I don't want to have to, when I'm 5 minutes away from their house, stop at a supercharger and top off for another 20, 30 minutes. I've been driving for 15 hours. I'm ready to be there. If I know that at my final destination, at my family's place or at my friend's place, or for you guys, it could be a hotel or whatever, when you reach your final destination, knowing you can charge there opens up a whole lot of extra flexibility. So I was absolutely planning on taking the mobile connector with me and plugging it in and charging as soon as I reached my destination. So I cannot do that with a wall charger. A wall charger is stationary. I can't take it with me, which is why what I ask to the people who say, oh, I don't use my mobile connector, or my Tesla came with one and I never used it. Why haven't you gotten rid of it? Why haven't you sold it? Why haven't you given it away? Either the two options are you're lazy or tired or don't feel like finding a home for it or selling it. But I mean, like, hey, people are selling those things for $250 a piece. That's $250 sitting in your frunk, adding extra unnecessary weight. Why not sell it? Why not do something with it? Or the more common option is probably because it's a nice to have. It's not something you're going to use daily, but it's something that's very convenient to have in a pinch if you go on a trip and you're low on range and you get to your destination, even if it's just a 110 outlet, just topping off on that and combating the phantom drain is very, very nice to have. And all of the data we have collected shows us that most people do end up using the mobile connector. Not saying everyone does. I understand there's many people who don't, but acting like no one is using it, I think is unrealistic and just against the data. Let's free the data, right? No, I agree. Airbags is safety, charging cord is convenience. I'll have more talk on that soon. 15 million is very small compared to $19 billion quarter revenue. Helps with employee acquisition, internal spending, etc. Regardless, I think they could have handled removing it better. Like, okay, even if you're trying to make the argument that we don't want to include the mobile connector for 40%, if 40% of people aren't using it, then just be clear on that in the website and make it obvious that, okay, these cars will have it, these cars won't. A lot of brakes are not being used, a lot of steering wheels not being used. Well, it's hard to find like convenience features that aren't utilized and then using those as examples, right? Because it is a convenience thing, but like so are heated seats, I guess. So if you were waiting on the heated seat supplier, should we just stop including those as well? Or if you're delivering to a very warm climate, like should Teslas in Arizona not have, you know, heaters in them because the weather's going to be hot there so much, it's not going to be used as frequently. So I just see it as like not that big a difference and something that could have been more clarified on. I don't think people would have minded as much if they ended up doing like a $200 discount. Like it's included by default, but if you select no mobile connector, they shave off $200. And if you're worried about that eating into margins, then they'll raise the price and then remove the connector later. I think would have been a better way of going about it. Like we've seen so many price hikes, which are frustrating, but what I appreciate about the price hikes is that they're honest. They're upfront about them. They're just like, okay, if you ordered before the price hike, it doesn't apply to you. If you ordered after the price hike, it does apply to you. It's sad, it's annoying, but we understand how it works. It's like clear. It's very clear and understandable. The mobile connector thing was not very clear or understandable for that 3-day window. And they just, regardless of where it is. So Puerto Rico, Arizona gets cold. Puerto Rico's like tropical weather climate. Do we just not worry about including heated things in Hawaii, wherever the example is? If it's something that you don't utilize frequently, should we just get rid of that? But yeah, the earnings were great. Tesla has great margins, very profitable. But like if they would have increased the price last week by $500 for all models go up $500, but then they say they add the connector to the configurator and say, if you select no mobile connector, we'll shave off $200. I bet a ton of people would opt for that. A ton of people would be like, oh, cool. So I think that would have been the better way of handling it, is to make it seem like a discount, not so much you have to buy this extra thing, specifically when they don't have that extra thing in stock. Removing something that they don't have available is unpractical in my opinion. So I'm still confused by the fact that delivery started 2 weeks ago in the configurator, even after the shareholder deck has dropped, has not been updated. There's still no confirmation from Tesla on how much this Model Y costs. Hopefully they answer that on the earnings call, but I don't think it's in the question set. Someone tweeted out the questions earlier. I'll try to find it. The top voted on questions. Let's see. When I had a Y, the only thing that ever sat in my back seat was my Pug Puka, rear seats on chopping block next. Yeah, there's a good question. How often does the middle seat in the second row get used? I bet the usage of the fifth seat in a Model Y is far lower than the mobile connector usage. Let's just make 4-seaters. Because that's like probably 90% of all that's probably like 90% of all seating is done in those main 4 seats. Most people don't sit in the hump. That doesn't mean let's all get rid of the hump. The SAE J1772 adapter should be included regardless. Elon did mention they want to include more adapters in the mobile connector kit, but I'm not sure if that's applying to new orders. I'm in Canada and we need heated seats. Yeah, I'm saying like there's a lot of people that live in rural areas that want to use the mobile connector because they can't use third-party chargers, and wall connectors are impractical and non-mobile. Wall connector is far more expensive, far harder to hook up to your circuit breaker, and you can't take it with you, which makes it far less useful. So that's why I'm saying, yeah, keep including it. I think a lot of people do use it personally. I don't think the usage is super low. I think there's more things that they include in the car as a convenience feature that are used less than the mobile connector. That's where I stand on it. But that's why the argument that it's a supply chain related thing makes more sense. Okay, so we'll look over some of the questions that they're going to answer, or I shouldn't say answer. They address on the earnings call. How does Tesla plan to secure raw materials required to scale to extreme size? It's kind of a weird question. It's kind of like, well, how else would you secure raw materials? You know, buy mining contracts and buy land. And Tesla talked about at Battery Day some of their lithium extraction processes they have patented, and they'll probably use those. Um, let's see. How are the current 4680s performing versus the expectation set during Battery Day in terms of expected range increase and dollar per kilowatt hour? That's a good question, but I'm not expecting that to get a good answer. I think similar to the shareholder deck right now, all they've said with Giga Berlin and Giga Texas is early ramp. They don't want to give concrete numbers on the run rate of those factories, so they're probably not going to give concrete numbers on the 4680s cost per dollar, or sorry, cost per dollar, dollar per kilowatt hour, or the expected range increase, because I don't think they are applying a range increase with the 4680. I mean, yeah, they're putting it in a standard range vehicle that's 279 miles. Um, does it go help for Dogecoin or not? Nothing can help Dogecoin at this point, unfortunately. At what rate do you expect Berlin and Austin to ramp up relative to Shanghai? Are you able to leverage learnings from Shanghai, or are the processes substantially different in the new factories? It's a decent question, but again, I don't expect to get many concrete new numbers from that. Yeah, my internet is showing. I think that Tesla's answer will likely be that the challenges with ramping the new factories is that the supply chains are more hit during this time, whereas when Giga Shanghai was ramping, supply chains weren't as big of an issue because Shanghai was ramping a lot of which before COVID. Um, at Cyber Rodeo, Elon mentioned that a futuristic driverless robotaxi vehicle is on the roadmap. When can we expect more details on this product offering to be unveiled? Is this something that people can own, or is this only will this only be offered by Tesla as a service? Earnings call is it's on Tesla's YouTube channel. You can look it up. I'm tired of reading off the time every time someone. Am I just Google for everyone? Basically, 45 minutes. But I don't think they have much information on the robotaxi. I have a feeling that the reason they haven't told us or shown us much about the robotaxi is the fact that FSD beta is not done yet, and I don't even think it's really close to being done. There's still a lot of changes they're going to have to make before it goes to mass rollout, and it definitely has to get a lot better before they start building cars without steering wheels. Um, I personally don't see why Tesla would let people own the vehicle. I think that it's far more profitable for Tesla to own every robotaxi. Um, and right now, you can't even deliver a car to a customer that doesn't have side view mirrors. So the concept that you'd be able to deliver a car without a steering wheel or pedals, that's not going to happen anytime soon, regardless of how good FSD beta gets, or how good the software is, or how good the algorithm learns, or Tesla Dojo coming online. Remember Dojo? I feel like they haven't talked about that in a long time. Um, Finish Strong Cycling says, I use the mobile connector every day with my Model 3 Standard Range Plus as no speed benefit with wall connector. This change would definitely impact those car owners the most, which I think is a lot based on Tesla Scope's data, crowdsourced data of over 9,000 vehicles. They said um, over 60% of charging was through the mobile connector. So, yeah, I agree. Um, but yeah, I doubt Tesla has a timeline on an event for the driverless robotaxi vehicle, and I personally don't think they would ever sell that to people. That's not There's not many advantages to doing that. For one, it would be very expensive, and Tesla would be sharing revenue. Like, it would make more sense to sell the robotaxi to consumers if you were low on cash and Tesla wanted to collect a bunch of money up front. But I don't think they want to do that. They've got plenty of cash. Their margin's really good. They're raking in a ton of money with vehicle deliveries already. So I don't I don't see why they would need to sell those to people. They would just rent them out, use them as robo taxis wherever they want to use them. Probably keep them nearby the factory so they don't have to travel that far. And if something goes wrong, you can take it back pretty easily. Um, okay, last question from anonymous institutional investor says Elon has historically provided FSD timelines with suboptimal accuracy. We love his optimism for 2022 release, but is there any data Tesla can share with investors to help them make their own conclusions on the progress being made, interventions per mile driven, or any other data? That doesn't seem like much of a question. It just seems like more of a let's admit that you've been wrong. Like, can you just acknowledge how wrong you are, Elon? Elon, you've been wrong so many times, which is like fine. I mean, I agree he's been wrong a lot, but I don't know why we need to bring it up on an earnings call. All they're gonna do is sidestep the question. Um, Probably all the data they're comfortable sharing is in the shareholder deck already, which is just you know uh, interventions are going down, and we've rolled it out to Canada, and it's getting better and better. But again, that to me, saying it's getting better than it was does not mean it's going to be done this year. So I don't I don't personally believe that it's going to be robo-taxi season later this year. The concept of FSD beta rolling out to everyone is a bit more viable, but it's a bit more believable, I guess. Indicators aren't used on most BMW. That's good. Let's remove indicators from the BMW. They don't need it. Let's see. The money coming in from having to buy the mobile chargers will go to purchase Twitter. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Elon is borrowing against his stock to cover his Twitter investment. So I'm not convinced that Tesla is buying Twitter or that money is being shared or anything. He's just borrowing capital for that because he has enough Tesla stock as is. Um, it's quite it's quite funny to see how many orders Tesla got the day after the Super Bowl. It was like record high. Planet Tech said would be kind of interesting if they announce another factory, but I kind of doubt that. They did say they would announce a new factory by the end of the year, but I don't think it would be this soon. Yeah, I think they're scouting. That's what they said on the last earnings call is they're looking for a new location, but I think they probably announce it near the end of 2022, not this early. Um, do you guys have predictions for the next factory? I'm actually convinced that either they're going to add a second factory to China because there's already two gigafactories in the United States, and the US automotive market is smaller than the Asia automotive market. But an argument that I've seen other people bring up, which is a really, really good point, is that Japan is the fourth largest car market in the world. So you have Asia, Europe, North America, and then Japan is number four. There's a lot of cars being bought in Japan, and it's kind of home turf for Toyota and that kind of thing. So if they just want to go based on population, I think putting a factory in Japan would make the most amount of sense because they already have a factory presence in China. It's possible that Giga Shanghai, I mean, I remember reporting on it a while back, but Giga Shanghai just may continue to expand. They might not need to build a whole separate factory at some other location in China because most of the population is all on the east coast of China anyway. And they already got a facility producing vehicles and manufacturing batteries and stuff all right next to each other. So they might just continue to grow Giga Shanghai and not necessarily need to build out another location in Beijing or anything like that. But Japan is an island, so every vehicle you deliver in Japan has to be imported, has to go on a boat, and it's a very large car market. So maybe building vehicles locally could save a lot on import costs if they built one there. Um, Australia is cool. You know, I want to go to Australia, but the population is just not that high. There's not that many people living there. Um, let's see. He can't really borrow from his Tesla stock. The board put a limit on how much you're allowed to borrow against it, and it's nowhere near 43 billion. Well, yeah, he can borrow from more than just Tesla, but Tesla's so profitable with almost $0 debt, they had to spend $50 million on a party in Texas. I don't think they had to, and I don't know if it was $50 million, but I'm sure it was cheaper than pretty much any Super Bowl commercial that was run for a EV6 or a Ionic 5 or the Lucid Air commercials. Those were all probably far more expensive than the Cyber Rodeo. Um, I'm just saying he can't borrow his against his Tesla stock. I'm pretty sure he can. I just think there's a limit to how much, but he owns a lot of Tesla stock, and Tesla stock's market cap is at what right now? What? Yeah, it's over $1 trillion. So he's got the money. I wouldn't worry about that. I could see a smaller factory around 200,000 per year going to Australia. Maybe it's just Australia's not statistically that high a car market. There's not a, I mean, there's more people in California than there are Australia, and I think there's more people in Canada than there are Australia. So yeah, the shipping costs are high, but the end reward is less high. At a certain point, building vehicles and shipping them to another country is more cost effective than building them locally if the market for it is small enough. Um, Giga Tokyo, Giga Mumbai, or another Midwest Gigafactory are my guesses. I guess that would make sense. There's, U.S. automotive market's quite large, but so is Europe. Europe is, I think, bigger than North America. So, in terms of car sales, is what I'm referring to. Since Tesla was already top selling EV in China, I feel it makes more sense to go to Europe again, maybe UK. I just don't know if the automotive. I mean, I could pull this up. We could look at it together. Um, Largest. I'll pull it up here. Largest car markets. Largest car markets by country. So this is why a lot of people have wanted India. So China's at 21 million, United States at 14 million. This is last year. 20 more rows. India's big one, but the country's definitely not spending that much money on their cars. They're selling a lot of cars, but they're very, very cheap. And I don't think Tesla, even if they built a $20,000 Model 2, that's still like 5 or 10 times the price of like the best selling cars in India. So they're already in Germany. Germany's number 5. That's pretty high on the list. But yeah, Japan is really up there, and they don't have a presence there. And the country has a decent amount of money to spend on vehicles. So the kind of vehicles that are selling well in Japan are similar in price to Tesla's models, whereas that's not the case in India or Brazil. Brazil is also a very large car market, but it's very, very cheap cars. They're not high price. So where's United Kingdom? Down under France. It's not super high, and Australia is number 13. So it's quite a bit lower, which is why I can understand them not prioritizing those right away. I feel like Giga Berlin can probably cover the United Kingdom's demand. Just build a mega factory in Australia instead of Giga. The problem is factories are only worth it when they can output a certain amount. So sometimes the amount of time and paperwork and infrastructure and supply chains you would need to build out a gigafactory aren't necessarily worth it if they're not building a high enough capacity. Sometimes it's just cheaper to build it in China and have it shipped to Australia. And I think that might be the case since how low Australia is on this list. They're not particularly a high volume. Yeah, like all the cars that were sold in Australia last year, that's close. It's a little bit more than Tesla's total vehicles produced. And, they're growing 50% a year. So, um, yeah, Toyota sold 223,000 vehicles in Australia last year. That's less than half of what one gigafactory can produce. So you would definitely need a much lower volume factory there, unless you just wanted Tesla's taking over the entire country as like the only model sold. But yeah, most of the gigafactories are aiming for like a 1 million run rate eventually. Can also double as energy storage slash producing location. That could work. That's just not what most of they're building right now. That's probably more dependent on supply chains, which I guess there is some mining going on in Australia, so that might make more sense for energy storage. But that's still going to be the same thing. With populations being lower, there are less people buying solar. There are less people buying energy storage systems because there's less people. So a lot of the time, it's just going to be cheaper to build that out of the country and ship it in. Um, there's a stainless steel car once built in Ireland. Really? There was one built here. It's called the Cybertruck. Two port cities and one straddling the solar and Cybertruck factories in the U.S. seems like ideal conditions, ideal locations. Yeah. Giga Detroit. Yeah. But does he know why kids like the taste of cinnamon toast? I put 100% of my faith for a faster Model Y delivery on Austin. Go Texas. Yeah, I sure hope so, but they still have not updated the website with the configurator. Um, yeah, the EV market in Australia is even lower because, of course, there's a bunch of gas cars still being sold. Um, Jeremy Wong says Australia is only 30 million in population. That's like a village in China. I don't know what counts as a village in China, but 30 million is basically the population of Mexico City. With all of these price hikes to the standard range Model 3, Tesla should make it dual motor. They don't cost much, and it will line up that both with the standard range Model 3 and Y both have dual motors. Oh no! Ezra, don't give them good ideas. I mean, that's not necessarily a good idea for consumers, but I was kind of having a similar thought recently. I was like, Tesla could probably get away with this point with upping the price of the LFP Model 3 higher and higher because range wise, it's really not that different from the long range. Once you consider that long range is charging to 80% a day, which ends up being 285 miles, versus LFP charging to 100% every day, 272 miles. The bigger difference between those cars is the dual motor powertrain. And Tesla seems to be very comfortable charging a lot for a vehicle if it's dual motor. So I actually don't know if it's possible, considering LFP is less energy dense, so the battery takes up more space. I'm still convinced that they can't, because of the size of the Model 3 and the Model Y. I'm fairly convinced they cannot build an LFP dual motor vehicle. Maybe the Rivian can do it because the Rivian's bigger, and it's okay if it weighs more. So maybe Rivian can find a way of doing a 105 kilowatt hour LFP with two motors or four motors. But Tesla's vehicles are just overall smaller in every way. They're less wide, they're less long, and um, I've also seen some people claim that the voltage that the LFP battery pack is capable of outputting at can't really support a dual motor powertrain, or at least very well. But other people have disagreed with that. I think the limiting factor said that no, you could do a dual motor LFP. Um, but I haven't seen it been done yet, so I'm going to assume it's not possible until they start doing it. But that's a that's a spookily good idea, Ezra. I'm worried that they're going to do that next. They're going to be like, actually, all Teslas are dual motor, and then they'll up the price of the Model 3 all-wheel drive. Not long range though. Just Model 3 all-wheel drive. It'll be $52,000, and it'll be LFP, and it'll probably still sell pretty well because it's the cheapest Tesla. So if people want a Tesla, that's the cheapest one you can get. And I guess I won't be too upset because hopefully they honor my reservation. And as long as they deliver mine, I'll be fine. I'll be happy. I'm comfortable with the price I agreed to. I assume we locked it in, and I feel comfortable with that price. I'm just discouraged and hoping that Tesla doesn't decide to stop making my model and tell me I have to upgrade, because that has happened to people. There were people who ordered the rear-wheel drive long-range Model Y, and they were waiting for a long time, and then Tesla said, sorry, we've decided we're not making that model. You got to opt for long range. And I really hope Tesla does not call me one day and say, hey, we've discontinued the model. You got to opt for long range. I hope they at least give me a discount if that's the alternative, because I don't really want the long range. Well, I should be clear. I don't want to pay for the long range. Is Tesla stock a good buy right now? Not investment advice. I can't do it. No investment advice. Do your own research. Blah blah blah. But yeah, yeah. I think I think it'll. If you're at long term, I am not a believer of buying and selling stocks in the short term. People who buy and sell stocks within weeks or days or hours, those are called gamblers. You're basically just gambling on what the market's going to do, which is very, very hard to anticipate, especially with Tesla, because a lot of the time Tesla will announce something great and the stock goes down, or Tesla will do nothing, or something bad will happen and the stock goes up. It's very emotional based. The short term stock price is really not built on any kind of logic. It's all just built on how people are feeling that particular day. So if you're asking me if I think the stock will be better 10 years from now, yes, I think it'll be much higher than what it is today by 2030 or 2032 or whatever. Um, how much better? I don't know, and no one knows. Don't try to believe anyone that tells you they know how high the stock's going to go. It's all just assuming, speculation, and prediction. None of it's a guarantee. There's still bad things that could happen. The stock could still tank, even if Tesla was doing well. If the public perception is bad because Elon does something controversial or people don't like Elon, then people will sell the stock even if the company's doing well. I've seen that happen, and I've seen Elon make tweets that were, you know, not politically correct, or he'll make jokes that aren't funny, and the stock tanks because of it. Doesn't change anything with the company, but it still affects the public perception, which drives the stock down. So I personally think the stock will go up in the long term. Short term, it's all over the place. It's impossible to know. Um, they haven't said when the split is, but they've just brought it up to shareholders that they want to do another split. And I think they're going to vote on doing a stock split at the annual shareholders meeting, but we don't know when that is yet. It's probably going to be around August or so. Um, but yeah, I think it will probably split again because we're almost to the stock price of what it was last time it split. I think Tesla stock was at $1,500 a share when they split it, and now we're close to 1,500. I mean, it was over 1,000 earlier. Now it's down again because the stock is weird, and it also fluctuates with the market too. Like just Netflix having a bad quarter impacts all of the tech stocks for some reason. Can you make a video on dual motor standard range Model 3? Like I said, that'd be a very good idea. I may, yeah, if there's nothing else to talk about later in the week, I may cover that. Stephen Mark Ryan knows what the stock will do. Eh, I don't watch everything he makes, but I remember he was doubling down and really, really emphasizing. He kept claiming. I remember in his earlier videos, he was like, "Tesla will deliver over 1 million vehicles in 2021. Mark my words. I promise you that. Come back. Use this video as a reference. I'm putting it out on the record. I promise you, they will beat 1 million." Yeah, they still did good. I'm not trying to say they did bad, but Steven was over expecting the deliveries. He thought they would beat 1 million, and they were at 930,000, I think. Still really good, very fast growth, but it was not 1 million. Um, I recall countless predictions about the truck coming out at a certain point, or FSD will be figured out by this time, and it's still not figured out. So yeah, I think sometimes it's okay to be realistic about expectations, because I know there's the Super Bulls out there that are like, oh, to the moon, they're going to have Tesla bots and they're going to build 100 million of them a year and they're going to take over the economy. And it's like, that's fun to talk about and say like the stock is infinitely valuable and it'll go up to $1 million a share. People make those crazy claims, but the reason I don't do that is because it sets you up for disappointment when it doesn't happen, which is why I try to align what I expect with reality. That way, when Tesla does a good job, they beat your expectations, and it feels like, wow, okay, Tesla did better than I thought. If your expectations are to the moon, and your expectations are always insanely high, Tesla's never going to meet your expectations, and you'll always feel disappointed, which is why I've been trying my best on this channel and with my streams and with my videos to set expectations to be more realistic. Like, no, I don't think the Cybertruck's going to be affordable. No, I don't think it's going to be 500 miles of range. And no, I don't think Giga Texas is going to make a 400-mile range Model Y. I don't think they're going to lower prices for any of their vehicles in the near future. I don't think the Model 2 is going to happen. I also don't think there will ever be a $25,000 Tesla. A lot of people disagreed with me on that one, but I just genuinely don't think the demand and the production capacity Tesla reaches will ever get to a point where Tesla needs a $25,000 vehicle in order to accelerate the transition. So, yeah, that's like the demand's too high for it, honestly. Tesla stock's performing well after hours though. That's funny. I'm just now noticing that. They went down 5% today, but then after the markets closed, it went up 5%. So now it's back over 1,000, which is kind of cool. Um, I would like to learn more about the Matrix headlights now that they are legal in the US. Any added functionality versus the standard reflector LED headlights? There should be, but it's all a software limited. Right now, they don't have the software in them to do the adaptive headlights, but I would have thought they would have updated it by now since the NHTSA has legalized it. Um, Danny Popo, thanks for joining the stream. I'm glad you liked it. Danny's probably our number 43,000 subscribers, so I think we just hit 43,000. Thanks, guys, by the way. I've still never bought more and probably should have, but I got in pretty heavy 3 years ago, around $200 mixed. Well, that's decent. It's probably a lot better now if you held on to it. If there's a way, but yeah, if there's a way for them to do an LFP dual motor, I think they'll do it. But they're not doing it in China. You know, they have two LFP models in China, and they're both rear-wheel drive. So I don't know exactly what the reason is behind that, if it's a space thing or a voltage thing, but I'm fairly convinced that LFP is very difficult to do with a dual motor powertrain, at least with the battery as small as it is on the Model Y and the Model 3. I think it's like 60, 62 kilowatt hours. And LFP vehicles are already kind of heavy because of the lower energy density. And I'm sure that battery pack takes up more space. So I get the impression that it's not that easy. But we've got about 23 minutes till the earnings call begins. And yes, you'll be able to hear the earnings call on this live stream. I'll play it so you can all hear. And if you don't want to listen to me reacting to the earnings call, it's on Tesla's YouTube channel. Just look up Tesla Q1 earnings call. I'm sure it'll probably be near the top. Is Tesla Fremont building gigacasted Model Ys? Yes, and something that that appears to not be very clear on the internet is that Fremont is using front and rear single piece castings. That is not exclusive to Texas. They switched over to the single piece front castings back in October of last year. So the only difference mainly between the Model Y built in Fremont in Texas is, of course, the manufacturing layout, so quality control, and the 4680 structural battery pack. That is done in Texas, not done in Fremont, but the single-piece castings are being done at both factories. As far as I can tell, I haven't seen anyone disprove that. But, yeah, I'm sorry, my mind is still just dwelling on the fact that they say they want to start adding 2170 Model Ys to the... So it's like, how many 4680 Model Ys are they going to make at this point, right? Like, are they just going to do standard range 4680 Model Ys? Are they never going to bring 4680s to any other trims? Nah, I don't know. Now I'm not so sure based on the wording. Hardy says, upgrade your Model 3 to long range. You can now do it for the old price. In your case, $6K more for long range is worth it. I don't think it is. It's a difference of like 10 miles, really. And on a road trip, it's a difference of 40 minutes. And I'm not road tripping like daily. I plan on doing, road trips every maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 times a year. To save 40 minutes 4 times a year, I should spend an extra $6,000. I don't think so. And I really want LFP. I think that's the future of EV battery chemistry. Like if anybody out there watching this has not bought an EV yet for the reason of they're too expensive and I'm waiting for them to get more affordable, very likely that whenever you do buy an EV, it will probably have an LFP battery in it, because that's what's going to enable cost competitive electric vehicles in the future, is using iron-based cathodes in the battery. And also the cycle life being so high, because we do, maybe not necessarily, but we at least want the option of being able to hold on to this Model 3 for many, many years to come. We've admitted that if our lifestyle changes, right now we don't really need a crossover, and we don't really need we don't really need a truck or anything for our lifestyle. We both are home. I work from home. I don't have to drive to work or anything. The car is mostly for, visiting friends and family members, taking longer drives, taking trips to see people, and covering for the channel. And I think the ownership experience of the LFP Model 3 is more valuable because we already know what it's like to own a Tesla with 2170 cells and a nickel-based cathode, and we know how those degrade over time. And between the EV, all the guys on the EV podcast, we have some people that are planning on getting the Cybertruck, and we have Mike with the Model Y, and Nick is going to have a performance model. I want to have LFP so I can weigh in on my experience, and I have something different from everybody else's, so we can see how much degradation I experience over many, many years of ownership. But if my lifestyle does not change and nothing in my life comes up where I could make use of a hatchback or a pickup truck, then I am more than happy and very comfortable to own this Model 3 for decades, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, if LFP allows me so. So if it's possible for me to measure the degradation and watch the cycle life of this model age, I think it's great. The long range, I would not get much out of. I would be spending an extra $6,000, and I would be getting an extra 10 miles of range. Probably less because nickel-based cathodes degrade a lot in their first year. It's usually like the first year, boop, it drops down, and then it peters out over the long haul. So once that initial drop happens, and you're charging to 80% every day, you're talking about basically the exact same range as the LFP, which is 100% every day. And I have not talked to anybody who bought the LFP Model 3 who said they wish they got long range. Genuinely. I've seen tons of people in the chat. I've talked to people on Discord. I've talked to people on Twitter. Everyone who bought the LFP Model 3 was like, oh yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. And I was like, oh, do you wish you got long range? They're all like, nah, don't notice. It's fine. Do I think LFP is more important than 4680? Oof, they're both important, I think, for different ways. Like, I think LFP is going to be more beneficial to the consumer, and 4680 is going to be more beneficial to the manufacturer. Because let's weigh the benefits of both, right? Like, they share a lot of similarities. The 4680 allows for extreme scale. It's not even so much about affordability. I think people got caught up on that. Like, they think Battery Day was all about Tesla announcing a cheaper model, right? It's like, nah, it's not really about lowering prices. It's about scaling production to higher capacity, because this is what I've been saying for years, is that if you solve the production capacity problem, everything else will take care of itself. Like if your argument is, well, there's not enough demand and we need more people ordering EVs. It's like, well, demand would increase if the EVs were cheaper, right? If we could suddenly build vehicles for cheaper, that would help with demand. And what would help making vehicles cheaper is if you're selling more of them, because it means you can collect a smaller and smaller profit margin per vehicle. So like right now, Tesla is bringing in a lot of profit and, making a lot of cash, and you're selling $10,000. I don't know what the official numbers are, so I'm just going to use placeholder numbers. Understand these are not concrete numbers. This is not what they actually are. But for the sake of the example, let's say they make a profit of $10,000 per car. Just hang with me. $10,000 per car, and you sell 1 million cars in a year. So you can do some math on that and figure out, okay, this much money is what's supporting the whole company. That's supporting all the staff, the R&D, the supercharging, the growth of the new factories. If you're now building 10 million vehicles, okay, you increase production capacity, you're building more cars, you got more factories, you got more suppliers sending you raw materials. Now you can sell cars with a $1,000 profit, and you're making the same amount of money because you have more vehicles being sold in total. You can collect a smaller margin. So essentially, the more you grow production capacity, the lower you can comfortably set prices, assuming there's no demand. Keep that in mind. If there is high demand, then there's no incentive for Tesla to lower prices. You're basically burning money by not increasing prices. If you're sold out for the year and there's still more and more people ordering your car, um, it's just logical to keep prices high, because the only reason to lower your prices is because you want more people to buy your car. So Tesla doesn't need more people to buy the car right now. They've already got tons of people ordering. So that's why prices are not going down. But manufacturing, I think, is going down, which means, of course, as we saw in the shareholder deck, the margins are improving. They're taking a higher and higher profit margin. Is Tesla the Apple in EV? There's a lot of differences between Tesla and Apple, but yes, I admit they do have a lot of similarities. And as far as the automotive market goes, I would say Tesla is probably the closest to Apple. But honestly, I don't think if Apple was making EVs, they would be doing what Tesla is doing. I think Apple would make EVs more like Lucid, um, because Apple's never been so much about selling the best. They always just wanting, sorry, different terminology. Apple's been more about selling the best product possible, whereas Tesla's trying to sell the most product possible. In Tesla's mind, their vision, their mission statement is to sell the most, accelerate the transition, which means selling the most amount of vehicles. It's not about selling the best vehicles. It doesn't mean that for their mission statement they have to have the best range or the lowest price or the best quality control or even the best efficiency. They don't really need to get all those things. All that matters is that they are delivering more and more and more, and they just deliver as much as they possibly can. That's Tesla's goal. That doesn't really align with what Apple does. Apple's more about, like, let's just have the best version of a product, which is more what Lucid is trying to do. Lucid is not trying to sell at the highest volume. They're just trying to have the best product. But of course, that's very subjective and it depends on the person. You're forgetting about the dual motors, better in wet conditions and much faster. Oh, great. It'll be so much safer in the 5 times a year when it rains. But yeah, I know there's benefits to all-wheel drive. They're just not benefits I'm going to appreciate. I've never owned an all-wheel drive vehicle in my whole life, and I've never had issues driving in the rain. It doesn't rain where I live very much at all. It doesn't even snow where I live. Um, and I could not care less about performance. There's advantages to all-wheel drive, but none of them are helpful to me. Um, Mike says if the Model Y didn't exist, I would have gotten an LFP Model 3. There you go. In my mind, the Model Y basically doesn't exist because it's too expensive. Like, we held off on ordering for so long because we didn't think the long-range Model Y on the website was that good a deal. And we were kind of holding out that Giga Texas would introduce a far better Model Y, because, we got caught up in the hype as well, watching Battery Day, hearing about the 4680 cells, and we were like, okay, at some point this new Gigafactory has to change something on Tesla's website, right? Like, we gotta at least wait and see what happens with this new 4680 Model Y. And turns out the 4680 advantages of lower cost of manufacturing and higher energy density or less cells per vehicle, Tesla gets all of those advantages. They're not giving those advantages back to us, which means that still to this day, the cheapest Model Y on the website, because it's not updated, is $63,000. And back when we were announcing the Tesla plan, I think it was like $57,000 or $58,000. And back then we thought it was still kind of high. We were like, okay, after sales tax and everything, that's well over 60 grand for a Model Y. And we like the Y. It's more practical, and it's, in my opinion, it's, ignoring price, it's a better vehicle than the Model 3. It's more practical and more comfortable to sit in, but we did not have an infinite budget in mind, especially because we knew so many of you guys were supporting the channel, supporting on Patreon, and helping us out. We did not want to just put an infinite price on this thing, because we know that we don't take your guys' support for granted, and we want to make the best use of the capital we have. So we were like, okay, this is getting harder and harder pill to swallow. Maybe if Giga Texas comes online, they'll reintroduce the rear-wheel drive Model Y and it'll be cheaper. Or maybe they'll do an LFP Model Y. That would have been best case scenario. If they would have released a lithium iron phosphate Model Y, oh my God. Well, depending on the price. If the price was good, we would have bought that. But um, what I realized as the prices continued to go up, and it was like, okay, now it's 59, now it's 60,000, now it's $63,000 for a Model Y, is I was like, okay, even if they introduced a standard range Model Y right now, it would be worse range than the Model 3, and it would probably be like $10,000 more. It would be like 55 grand or 54 grand. We were like, I don't think we're comfortable spending, because after sales tax and registration and all that, that's still a $60,000 purchase. We were like, I don't know if we want to spend $60,000 on a car with worse range than the Model 3, which we can get for under 50. It's just too good a deal, and the LFP chemistry was exciting to me, and so both help with scaling battery production, and I think LFP just has more tangible benefits than 4680, at least as far as I'm aware. I mean, there's rumors that 4680s have a higher charge curve. I've been seeing people talk about that online, saying that the 4680 Model Ys are going to charge faster, which may be a good advantage. But again, that's only something you will utilize on supercharging stops. And like Mike has expressed, there's often situations where he thinks that charging is too quick on his 2170 Model Y. And it would be easier and more flexible if you could plug in and wait a little bit so you could go get lunch or you run some errands and come back to a full charge instead of, oh, now it charges up in 5 minutes, so I can't wait here very long. I got to get ready to go. Um, but there's also, talk from Battery Day that claimed that the 4680s would have a high cycle life. So it's possible that by going with a 4680 Model Y, it may last a lot longer than the 2170. But I don't think by much. I mean, we're already seeing people who had the Model 3 on day one and they still are getting fairly good battery health, and they're still able to, go over 300 miles after driving it for years and raking up a bunch of miles on it. So it's not like the 2170s are bad cycle life or anything. They're still going to last quite a while. So yeah, I think I'm trying to think of what's more important, because 4680 I do believe will allow Tesla to scale up to terawatt hour production, which is very important. But LFP will also pick up traction. You know what? Okay, it's a good question that was asked earlier by Trevor Scott. I think my answer is yes. I do think LFP is more important than 4680. Both are very important, but the only reason I'm going to side with LFP is because, to be completely honest, in this own shareholder deck that we read today, Tesla right now in 2022 is saying nearly half of their vehicles were delivered with LFP, whereas a handful of vehicles are being made with 4680. And as long as both battery chemistries are scaling, I think LFP will always be in the lead and therefore be more influential and allow for cheaper prices, higher scale because they don't need nickel and cobalt. So all you need is iron for the cathode. That's easier to mine, cheaper to mine. Um, so I'm not saying one is useless, but I'm still going to say LFP is, I think, more important than 4680. Do you think? Do I believe Ford or GM will merge or go bankrupt by 2030? I don't think the governments will let them. I think they've got too much union protection, and I'm not saying they're going to perform necessarily well. Ford still has like over $180 billion in debt, and now they're saying they're not profitable with the Mach-E, the F-150 Lightning, and they're hoping to be profitable in the next generation of EVs. Is like, I appreciate the product. I think the F-150 Lightning is a great deal. I think it's a great bargain, and I admire them for prioritizing affordability, but I do not see them prioritizing scale as much as Tesla does. And I don't know if that business is gonna. I personally don't think Ford or GM is gonna perform very well over the next 10 years. But that does not mean they will go bankrupt. That just means they'll get bailed out by the government, because it's happened before, and I think it'll happen again because they have a lot of political power with unions and politicians, and they'll just get more bailouts. They'll get more subsidies that say, okay, you keep trying, GM. You can build EVs at your own pace. Good job. And Tesla will get like nothing from the government, but still build out things faster and deliver more vehicles than everybody else. Um, so, yeah, I think that Ford and GM will still be around, even if they don't perform well. They'll just get bailed out. How do you feel about Fisker Ocean? Sorry, off topic. I don't have much of an opinion on them. It seems okay, but I don't know. To me, like there's so many EVs these days. So many car companies coming out with their own version of an electric crossover, and I kind of need something. You just get overwhelmed with options with how many different crossovers there are. I'm like, you kind of need something to stand out from the crowd. I want to see something that gives you an advantage that the others don't have, particularly with startups or new vehicles that are coming out. It's like, what do you got that others don't? Because for the most part, it just seems like a roll of the dice. Like, okay, roll the dice. It has 250 miles of range. Okay, write that down. Roll the dice again. It costs 42,000. Okay, write that down. All right, and the design has light bar with pixelated, side polygons. It's like weird, like run of the dice, just random design quirks that I'm like, okay, what's different about it? What do you have that the others don't? Because I'm realizing more and more as I cover EVs, it's like, okay, we can't just talk about the range and specs and design of every particular model, because otherwise there's going to be like 500 models and we can't focus on all of them. So we got to pick out the ones that stand out to us or offer things that are different. That's why I'm excited for Rivian, because they're the first company to deliver an electric pickup truck and also say that they want to build an LFP, the most important battery chemistry. They want to deliver a lithium iron phosphate pickup truck. No other company has said they want to do that, not even Tesla. And that's a big win in my book, because it means high cycle life, charged to 100% daily. And I think the gear tunnel, the software, and just the overall vibe of the company is different. And the bird chirp and the flashlight in the door, and there's all these great quirks and features that the Rivians have going for them. I'm a big fan of that, as I'm a big fan of Aptera. That design is unlike anything else we've ever seen. It's so weird, but it achieves this like miraculous efficiency, and they've got the doors that swing up, and they're a 3-wheel design. It's very unique and innovative. So I'm like, I want to see Aptera reach the market. Let's talk about Aptera updates and their interior choices and their compromises with functionality, but benefits of efficiency and the solar. How many miles of range you can get back with the solar panels on an Aptera. I'm like, let's talk about that. When it just comes down to, like this morning, I think someone announced something. Lexus was like, here's our electric crossover. I'll pull it up here. This morning, Lexus unveils their new RZ450E. Okay, what is it? It's $50,000 with a 225-mile range. It'll sell later this year. It's like, okay, average-looking hatchback that's electrically charged that has a pretty traditional interior. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I can't talk about every single one of these things. It's like there's so many of the exact same product, just with the numbers fluctuated a little bit. And I need something to stand out more for me to want to talk more about it or dive into it or do a video on it. Giovanni says, I was hoping Tesla would report disappointing earnings and the stock price would come down so I can buy more, but oh well. Yeah, I thought it would go down too. I thought that the Shanghai shutdown was going to be more influential, but it's up 6% after hours. Sheesh. That's pretty good. The upcoming Kia EV9 looks pretty awesome. Looks like a car from the future to me. Far more forward thinking than a Model Y bubble shape is. Well, if it has something unique or different about it, I'd love to dive into it in a video, but I'm looking at it right now and I'm like, okay, slightly more futuristic, but looks terribly unaerodynamic. That's going to hurt your range, having that giant hatch design. The reason the Model Y is that bubble shape is for efficiency. It's not just because Tesla's unoriginal or bored. They're trying to get the most amount of range so that they can have high range numbers, use less cells per vehicle, accelerate the transition faster. It's not just like, oh, we couldn't think of anything else. Um, yeah, LFP is prismatic, not cylindrical, so anything it would be three numbers defining as volume, where cylindrical has two numbers. That's true. Bold beats it in range and time. Really? Thoughts on Lucid Air delivering vehicles? It's great, but I hope they can actually hit some of their delivery estimates because they are way behind. Um, they said they were going to deliver 6,000 vehicles last year, and then they ended up changing it to 500, and then they changed it to 100. But anyway, the earnings call is going to start now, so I'm going to start playing it. It's probably playing music. Yeah, but you'll be able to hear it once it begins. I'll have it playing here. But it's 2:30, so how do I know when it starts? Did you see the pic of the Aptera charging port? Confirmation it's using the supercharger standard. They showed that. I don't see that as confirmation. They showed that exact same port when they originally unveiled it, like back in 2020. I think it was like September of 2020 they unveiled the Aptera, and it was shown with a Tesla connector. It's the same alpha prototype they have that shows the Tesla connector. It's not a production model, so I don't see that as confirmation. There's not software or firmware in place that says any EV can charge at a supercharger as long as it has the Tesla connector. So I'm not convinced that's a confirmation, but if anything, it's a... Oh, the music stopped.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tesla's first quarter 2022 Q&A webcast. My name is Martin Vieca, VP of Investor Relations, and I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Zachary Kirkhorn, and a number of other executives. Our Q1 results were announced at about 3 p.m. Central Time in the update that we published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events and results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. During the question and answer portion of today's call,
Are they laughing?
Please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Please use the raise hand button to join the question queue. Before we jump into Q&A, Zach will have some opening remarks. Zach?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Just to start off here, Q1 was a challenging but extremely successful quarter for the company. Despite numerous supply interruptions, including shutdowns at our Shanghai factory and nearby suppliers due to COVID, we've continued making progress and achieved our best ever vehicle deliveries. Last quarter, we demonstrated a series of new financial records, including revenue, gross margins, operating margin, and bottom line profitability. GAAP automotive gross margin reached 32.9%, and for the first time exceeded 30% when excluding regulatory credits. Higher pricing continues to positively impact our financials as we make progress delivering cars in our growing backlog. Note that for most vehicles, our delivery wait times are quite long, thus cars delivered in Q1 generally carried pricing set in prior quarters and at levels lower than cars being ordered today. Our per unit vehicle costs increased as well. Inflation, raw material prices, expedites, and logistics costs continues to impact our cost structure. Factory shutdowns also occurred with little to no notice, hence we were unable to take action to plan those interruptions in a cost-efficient manner. Additionally, we saw a slight mix shift towards more profitable vehicles, including the Model Y. We also recognized a one-time benefit of $288 million from credit revenue relating to a regulatory change in the U.S. CAFE penalty, without of which credit revenue would have declined compared to the same period last year. The energy business has continued to be impacted by macro conditions more severely than the vehicle business. Our storage products are in need of chip supply, and new import processes have impacted supply of certain components for our solar systems, which is reflected in our solar volume for the quarter. OPEX as a percentage of revenue continues to reduce, driven by higher revenue, lower stock-based comp expense, and other items. As a result of our ongoing improvements in operating leverage, we achieved a record operating margin of over 19%. Note that commissioning costs for our factories are in R&D, as Berlin started production in late March and Austin in early April. These costs will be in automotive COGS going forward, given these factories are now producing customer sellable cars. Our free cash flows have remained quite strong, yet were impacted by working capital related to lower than planned production. Additionally, we have reduced our debt, excluding product financing, to nearly zero. Looking ahead in the immediate term, a few things to keep in mind for Q2.
Nice.
First, we've lost about a month of build volume out of our factory in Shanghai due to COVID-related shutdowns. Production is resuming at limited levels, and we're working to get back to full production as quickly as possible. This will impact total build and delivery volume in Q2. Second, as I've mentioned before, Austin and Berlin are just starting their ramps, and thus those inefficiencies will start to flow through our gross margins in Q2. Third, we do have higher ASPs in our backlog, which will help to offset some of these headwinds. We continue to drive towards further strengthening of our financials in the second half of the year and believe our 50% or above growth rate remains achievable for the year. I want to conclude by thanking the Tesla team, our suppliers, and our new customers for a great first quarter.
Thank you very much. And Elon has some opening remarks as well.
There he's back.
Sure. Some of my remarks will be redundant with Zach's, but it's maybe worth repeating. Q1 was once again a record quarter on many levels, reaching the highest deliveries, profit, and an operating margin of 19%. This was despite a lot of chip shortages, many logistics challenges, and an overall difficult quarter. So I'd really like to congratulate the Tesla team on achieving record profitability and output despite many difficult headwinds, and especially the Tesla China team in our Shanghai factory. They really had significant challenges due to the COVID shutdowns, and nonetheless have been able to output a tremendous number of high quality vehicles. And we are already back up and running with the Shanghai factory. So as Zach said, we remain confident of a 50% growth in vehicle production in 2022 versus 21. I think we actually have a reasonable shot at a 60% increase over last year. So,
Ooh, 60.
let's see. Obviously, we production, as people know, with Giga Berlin and Giga Texas in the past few months. So we're two fantastic factories with great teams, and they are ramping rapidly. Now, with new factories, the initial ramp always looks small, but it grows exponentially. So, but I have very high confidence in the teams of both factories, and we expect to ramp those initially slowly, but like I said, growing exponentially, with them achieving high volume by the end of this year. So
It's 8 months.
let's see. We're also working on a new vehicle that I alluded to at the Giga Texas opening.
Whoa.
Which is a dedicated robotaxi that's highly optimized for autonomy, meaning it would not have steering wheel or pedals. And there are a number of other innovations around it that I think are quite exciting, but it's fundamentally optimized it's trying to achieve the lowest fully considered cost per mile or cost per kilometer, accounting everything. And so it's, I think, going to be a very powerful product where we aspire to reach volume production of that in 2024.
Wow.
So I think that really will be a massive driver of Tesla's growth. And we remain on track to reach volume production of the Cybertruck next year.
I hope
Let's
so.
see. So it's basically, once again, I'd like to thank the Tesla employees for their hard work, but also I'd like to thank our suppliers who have really gone the extra mile. we have an amazing supplier group, and I just want to say heartfelt thanks to the suppliers that have really worked day and night to ensure that Tesla is able to keep the factories running. And we're really at the early stage of our journey. We only crossed 1 million units in the past 12 months recently, and we aspire to head to 20 million units a year. So we're basically 5% along the way towards our goal. And but we are growing, very, very rapidly year over year, and remain confident of exceeding 50% annual growth for the foreseeable future, for basically several of the next years. I mean, so yeah. And then there's, of course, Optimus, which I was surprised that people did not realize the magnitude of the Optimus robot program. The importance of Optimus will become apparent in the coming years. Those who are insightful or listen carefully will understand that Optimus ultimately will be worth more than the car business, worth more than FSD. That's my firm belief. So,
okay.
And then of course insurance is growing well. We expect to address the part shortages that limited our progress with batteries and solar. So we expect batteries and solar to also grow well this year. And basically the future is very exciting. I've never been more optimistic or excited about the Tesla's future than I am right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to first investor question. The first investor question is, Elon has historically provided FSD timelines with not optimal accuracy. We love its optimism for 2022
Perfect
release,
timing.
but is there any data Tesla can share with investors to help them make their own conclusions on progress being made, interventions per mile driven, or any other data?
Sure. Well, with respect to full self-driving, of any technology development I've ever been involved in, I've never really seen more kind of false dawns or where it seems like we're going to break through, but we don't, as I've seen in full self-driving. And ultimately what it comes down to is that to solve full self-driving, you actually have to solve real-world artificial intelligence, which nobody has solved. The whole road system is made for biological neural nets and eyes. And so actually, when you think about it, in order to solve full self-driving, we have to solve neural nets and cameras to a degree of a capability that is on par with and really exceeds humans. I think we will achieve that this year. The best way to reach your own assessment is to join the Tesla Full Self-Driving Beta program, where we have over 100,000 people right now enrolled in that program, and we expect to broaden that significantly this year. So,
how many people have
that? That's my recommendation: is join the Full Self-Driving Beta program and experience it for yourself, and take note of the rate of improvement with every release. And we put out a new release roughly every 2 weeks. So
2 weeks.
And you'll see a little bit of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But overall, the rate of improvement is incredibly quick. So that's my recommendation for reaching your own assessment is literally try it.
Thank you. The second question is, how much of an impact will the production shutdown in Shanghai have in Q2? What is the timeline for localizing the Model 3 in Europe, or will newer models be prioritized in Berlin?
Jeez. Good question.
Well,
I want to hear this.
Yeah, we did lose a lot of important days of production, and there are sort of upstream supplier challenges where a lot of suppliers also lost many days of production. But Tesla Shanghai, Giga Shanghai is coming back with a vengeance. So I think, notwithstanding, new issues that arise, I think we will see record output per week from Giga Shanghai this quarter, albeit we are missing a couple weeks. So, that means that most likely vehicle production in Q2 will be similar to Q1, maybe slightly lower. But it's also possible we may pull a rabbit out of the hat and be slightly higher. But it's to be call it roughly on par. But then Q3 and Q4 will be substantially higher. So it seems likely that we'll be able to produce over 1.5 million cars this year. That's my best guess.
Wow.
And then Model 3, it's important for new factories to be focused on and have the least amount of complexity and variation, which is why Giga and Giga Texas are focused on the Model Y. It's from the point at which you have a factory complete and you're making a small number of units to the point where it's producing high quality vehicles in volume is sort of 9 to 12 months from start of production. So now hopefully we're getting better at that ramp, so maybe it's a little less, but to get to sort of the 5,000 a week level is typically taken us around 12 months from start of production. So.
Thank you. The next question is, how much raw material exposure do you have, measured roughly in percentage of cost of goods sold, for example, in a given quarter versus 1 to 2 years out, both direct and indirect? Separately, how do you think about price increases versus prioritizing higher mixed vehicles going forward?
Actually, on the price increase front, I should mention that it may seem like maybe we're being unreasonable about increasing the prices of our vehicles, given that we had record profitability this quarter. But the wait list for our vehicles is quite long, and some of the vehicles that people will order, the wait list extends into next year. So our prices of vehicles ordered now are really anticipating supplier and logistics cost growth that we're aware of or believe will happen over the next 6 to 12 months. So that's why we have the price increases today, because a car ordered today will arrive in some cases a year from now. So we have a very long wait list, and we're obviously not demand limited. We are production limited by very much production limited.
Raw material exposure?
Yeah, just to add to what Elon is saying, there's different ways to calculate raw material exposure. I think a simple way, we estimate we're around 10 to 15% of our cost structure exposed to raw materials. And just to clarify a couple of things on that. So we've been experiencing increases in costs in general, but also raw materials for a number of quarters now. That pace picked up in Q1, so last quarter. And what we're seeing for Q2 is slightly higher than that as well. And, as indices move, it doesn't impact us immediately or directly. In some cases, we have contracts with suppliers, but then as those contracts expire, we have to renegotiate them so that there can be a lag. In some cases, our contracts do directly reflect movement in commodity prices or raw material prices, but the timing in which that Tesla pays for that has a lag associated with it as well, based on the contract. And so to Elon's point, what we're trying to do here, because it's quite an unprecedented situation of raw material movement and all of these various lags and uncertainty around renegotiating contracts, is we're trying to anticipate where things will go and make sure that the pricing that we have put in place at the time that those raw material cost increases hit us, that they align, and that the company can remain financially healthy in various scenarios as we look out over the next 4 quarters.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is, why does Tesla continue to fight dealership laws on a state-by-state basis versus taking it federal? Separately, why isn't Tesla using 800-volt architecture in its vehicles? What are the advantages or disadvantages?
Sure. Well, from Tesla's standpoint, obviously, we'd love to have federal legislation that allows direct sales in all states, but we have not seen willingness on the part of the Congress to enact such laws that would override state laws. So, unfortunately, we have to fight it on a state-by-state basis. Drew, do you want to answer the 800-volt question?
Yeah, sure. On the 800-volt thing, yeah. So it's really a case-by-case thing for the smaller platform vehicles like 3 and Y. There's some wins and losses with 800 volts. Not everything is better. And so we look at that platform and, we're not like ignoring the reality that you could go to a higher voltage, but there's nothing really encouraging us to do so on that platform. It's really about mass and power. And as you look at bigger vehicles, there are some advantages on those bigger vehicles.
So I would just quantify that basically, like our estimate is that going from 400 to 800 volts might save $100.
Yep.
It's not really moving the needle.
And you're changing many things.
Yes, but exactly.
From the charging infrastructure all the way through the entire vehicle system.
Yes.
To get maybe $100.
Yes, exactly. So, in the US, you've got 110 volts household power or voltage, and then in most parts of the world, you have like sort of 220. But really, it doesn't make that much of a difference, and appliances work pretty much as well, in say Europe as they do in the US.
Yeah.
So there's some the advantages are small, and the cost is high. Like if say like long term, like years from now, does it make sense to probably move to an 800-volt architecture? I said probably, but it really needs a very big vehicle volume to pay for all the costs of changing from 400 to 800 volts. And then you want to continue with the...
I was just going to say that 100 volts is also kind of like a spreadsheet exercise, right?
$100.
Sorry, $100 is roughly like a spreadsheet exercise. Like, that you have to get through the full program to the end to see that maybe it's been whittled away to 50 or less.
Yeah.
On bigger vehicles where you're talking about higher power on the charging side or higher power from the battery to the power electronics, or you need more torque, so the current requirements go up. There's a little bit more semiconductor and actual conductor savings of going to the higher voltage, and so we do consider that for Semi and Cybertruck. But for the 3Y platform where we've got everything running and the benefit is questionably small.
Yeah, it's basically zero for robotaxi.
Yeah, for robotaxi, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So.
No. Sorry. No, this. So I was. Ignore.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Next question is, how are the current 4680s performing versus expectations set during the battery day in terms of expected range increase and dollars per kilowatt hour?
Yeah. We're working in all the areas we shared on battery day, and we have sort of consistent progress across all of those areas towards achieving the 5-year cost trajectory goals for the costs within our control. But we do not control all of the commodity costs. So, that's an exception I need to call out. Similar to Model 3, it will take us several years to get rate and yield to the point where everything that we've discussed is achieved. Our priority was on simplicity and scale during our initial 4680 and structural battery ramps. And as we attain our manufacturing goals, we will layer in new material technologies we are developing and higher range structural pack revisions.
I think maybe in a nutshell,
Sure.
I think probably it's fair to say that 4680 and structural pack will be competitive with the best alternatives later this year, and we think we'll exceed the best alternatives next year.
Yeah, I mean, we have some good existing proofs, right? Like we've built the facility here in Texas. Like we know how much we spent on capital equipment in the facility, and it's more than 5x less than prior technology installations. So we're saving huge on capex, on utilities and personnel. We know what those loads are and how many people are needed to run what is basically a highly automized factory, and we have massive reductions in both of those. So, like the cost model is well understood. It's really about rate and yield, which will come in time, as Elon said, over the course of this year and next.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the next question is, how does Tesla plan to secure raw materials required to scale to extreme size?
We'll do it.
So this is something we think about quite a lot. It depends what extreme size means, but so certainly if looking at like say the $5, $10, $20 million, $5, 10, 20 million vehicle levels, you really have to analyze the sort of macroeconomic, just like what is the tonnage of lithium that you need, of nickel, of iron phosphate, of graphite, separators, electrolytes, electrolyte. You really need to think of like just macro tonnage. And we need to think about this for the world as a whole, because we want to figure out what are limiting factors for accelerating the advent of a sustainable energy future, and whatever those limiting factors are, Tesla will take action on those limiting factors. So right now we think mining and refining lithium appears to be a limiting factor, and it certainly is responsible for quite a bit of cost growth in the cells. It's I think the single biggest cost growth item right now, certainly on a percentage basis. Although just for those who don't totally know this, the actual content of lithium in a lithium-ion cell is maybe around 2 or 3% of the cell. So
5 kgs a car.
Yeah, it's not 5 kilograms exactly. It's not. It's called a lithium-ion cell, but by far the most expensive and heaviest item in the cell is the cathode. So that's the nickel or the iron phosphate. So we're looking carefully at all of the raw materials and trying to figure out how we can accelerate the total amount of raw materials needed to transition the world to sustainability. And I think we've got, that we don't have enough time on this call to really go through all those details, but we are thinking about these things, and we think we'll have some exciting announcements in the months to come.
Yeah, one thing I want to call out is we're also committed to recycling at all of our cell factories. We're recycling 50 tons a week right now in Reno and ramping to 150 with all of that reclaimed material going directly back into our cathode supply chain. So we're looking at the beginning and end of life needs here.
Yeah, and that's true. Since Reno, we built Gigafactory, we started doing that with batteries. But as we built newer factories or vehicles, for example, Giga Texas here, where we are today, recycles all of its non-yielded or scrap aluminum from the stamping shop directly into the casting shop. We regrind any plastic that comes out. And so we're really concerned about raw materials, not just mining them and consuming them, but when we get them in the door, using all 100% of them.
Yeah, Lars, that's a great point. So we're installing sort of melt furnaces for aluminum, for the Model Y that we build here at Giga Texas has both a front and a rear body casting. So we're casting almost 2/3 of the body, and then it's high pressure die cast aluminum, and so we can take both scrap from the casting machine and the gating that comes out, and put that back, just really toss that back into the aluminum melting pot. And then, as Lars was saying, also take any stampings and any other aluminum scrap, and also throw that in the melting pot. And in fact, we've also figured out that we can use wheels from practically any car.
Make your wheels.
Yeah. So we're going to be recycling the cast aluminum wheels from legacy gasoline cars as well, and throwing that in the melting pot for our aluminum cast body
Smart.
of Model Y, and and also we'll be moving to the sort of cast front and rear body, in all vehicles over time. Well, actually, maybe not SX, but 3Y.
Thank you. At what rate do you expect Berlin and Austin to ramp relative to Shanghai? Are you able to leverage learnings from Shanghai, or are the processes substantially different in the new factories?
Ramp production faster than Shanghai because we have learned a lot, and we've now been through we have basically veteran teams that have seen the 3Y ramp, the Y ramp especially, in multiple locations, and we're obviously sharing what we've learned, and so it we don't want to get complacent or entitled, but this should be a faster ramp because we have learned more, and we've done a lot to simplify the production process of Model Y. That should lead us to a faster ramp in Texas and Berlin. Yeah.
We also have, because structural and casting, about 30% less robots. We expect to almost double the capacity for body, for example, reducing the number of robots, but doubling our capacity in a lot of areas.
Yeah, right. The body line for the structural pack is, and if you go structural pack and front and rear castings, the body shop is its body shop size drops by over 60% relative to the standard way of making a car.
And that taps into general assembly and everything else because we have the structural battery, the floor is the battery, we put the seats on the battery, and then we put that into the car. So there's actually like between 10 and 15% less stations in GA because of the general assembly start. Yeah, because of it as well. So really, like I think about this in the way that we think about cars. If you're waiting for the best Tesla, you're going to be waiting forever. If you're waiting for our best factory, you're also going to be waiting forever because every new factory is better than the last one because we take all that learning and we throw it into.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is, at Cyber Rodeo, Elon mentioned that a futuristic driverless robotaxi vehicle is on the roadmap. When can we expect more details on the product offering to be unveiled? Is this something that people can own, or will this be only offered by Tesla as a service?
So I think we want to hold off on, we don't want to jump the gun on an exciting product announcement too much. So I think we'll aim to maybe do a product event for robotaxi next year and get into more detail. But we are aiming for volume production in 2024.
Whatever that means.
All right.
Right.
Maybe the last question from investors is, what is the current run rate of 4680 cell production at Fremont and at Giga Texas? What do you expect run rates of 4680 to be in Fremont, at Giga Texas, or Berlin at the end of the year?
Well, Berlin is using the 2170 non-structural pack, so they're not constrained by 4680. They will transition to 4680 hopefully later this year. But current Berlin production does not require that. We also have, just as a risk mitigation, 2170 non-structural pack capability here at Giga Texas as well. But if things go according to plan, we will be in volume production with 4680, and sometime perhaps towards the end of the third quarter and certainly in the fourth quarter. That's accurate? True.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is, like, with the China COVID shutdown and the semiconductor bottlenecks we had through Q4 and and a little bit in Q1, we have sizable cell inventory at the moment and excess cells to support the 2022 volume targets you described. So that gives us the ability to be pretty deliberate in the 4680 ramp, where we can maximize the learning step by step, take engineering downtime to upgrade key pieces of equipment, and modify the structural pack design to improve reliability, all while achieving what you just said. So
yeah, if 4680 output is not a risk to achieving 1.5 million vehicles produced this year, but it would become a risk next year if we do not solve volume production, by early 2023. But we're highly confident of doing so.
Thank you very much. Let's go to analyst questions now. The first question comes from Dan Levi from CSFB. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh boy, these always suck.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking the questions. First, maybe you can just talk through or address what some of the drivers of cost improvement were in the quarter. Was it just further improvements within Shanghai and Fremont? Anything around sort of ongoing Kaizen that you've talked about in the past? Maybe you could just talk through what you benefited from in the first quarter.
Sure. I mean, at a high level, cars produced in Shanghai do carry a lower cost structure than cars produced in Fremont. And so as our mix of cars shift towards Shanghai, the average cost is positively impacted by that. We're also seeing some progress in manufacturing efficiencies in Fremont, particularly on the S&X side, as volume improves there. Expedites has been a huge story for the company. Q4, we had massive amounts of expedites. Q1 was still quite large, but we did make progress bringing that down some.
To mention, kudos to the Fremont manufacturing team and our associates there, because we're achieving record output at Fremont.
Yeah, the Fremont team is doing a tremendous job.
Really
Absolutely.
back quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
it's hard to underweight. Like you should, the expedite situation with the crazy logistics that occurred with COVID. I mean,
yeah, and to Elon's point, the Fremont team and also the Shanghai team has been extremely dynamic with the unpredictable nature of our part arrivals, and our supply chain team, in particular, production planning portion of supply chain. We often get very little notice when there's part shortages coming, and it's kind of a scramble a couple days before that part is supposed to arrive to figure out how to get it here. And so the amount of Herculean effort that goes in to produce a quarter like Q1, and even the quarters before that, is absolutely immense. And
right.
so,
I mean, it's like the saying in the military, it's like amateurs talk about tactics, professionals talk about logistics when it comes to war.
yeah. So there were some inherent cost improvements, as I mentioned, but, there's also offsets that we've talked about previously on raw materials, commodities. Outbound logistics continues to remain a challenge, despite a ton of efforts to increase capacity there and bring those costs down.
Great.
And do you have a follow-up? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Second question, one of the initial goals of Model 3 way back when was to have an EV that was affordable for a wide portion of the market. And, we know prices are much higher now, just given the supply constraints. Prices are higher for all other automakers. We know that there's inflation that you're battling through, and some of that needs to be passed through to the price of the vehicles. And you're going to be supply constrained for the foreseeable future, so it's sort of a moot point. But given the goal long-term of making EVs more widely available to the masses over time, how do you look at the progression of prices over time?
We absolutely want to make EVs as affordable as possible. It's been very difficult with the, I think inflation is at like a 40 or 50-year high. And I think the official numbers actually understate the true magnitude of inflation. So and that inflation appears to be likely to continue for at least the remainder of this year. Is what when we're talking to suppliers, suppliers are under severe cost pressure. So yeah, and in some cases we're seeing suppliers request 20 to 30% cost increases for parts from last year to the end of this to the end of this year. So there's a lot of cost pressure there. That's why we raised our prices, because when things are this uncertain with respect to inflation, if it's high, then we've got orders that go out a year or more in some cases, then we have to anticipate those cost increases. But I think especially with the robotaxi and autonomy, I think we will end up providing consumers with by far the lowest cost per mile of transport that they've ever experienced. Yeah, I mean, with the robotaxi, like maybe 5 to 10 times lower cost per mile, it's really quite substantial.
Therefore accessible to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, looking at some of our projections, it would appear that a robotaxi ride will cost less than a bus ticket, a subsidized bus ticket, or subsidized subway ticket.
And it's not subsidized. It was profitably cheaper.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the next question from Rod Latch from Wolfe Research.
Hi, everybody. I'm trying to just parse out your comments about the inflation and constrained supply and battery feedstocks and the initiatives that you are working on internally to secure these materials. It sounds like you're optimistic about Tesla's ability to solve this for Tesla. Do you see this as a constraint on EV adoption more broadly?
Yeah, absolutely. What's sort of keeping our costs down, at least in the short term, is that we have long-term contracts with suppliers, but those long-term contracts will obviously run out, and then we'll start to see potentially significant cost increases. But at a macro, sort of looking at the world as a whole and saying, okay, what does it take for Earth to transition to sustainable energy faster? It's fundamentally the fundamental limiting factor is the output of the cell, basically cell output. At what rate can lithium-ion cells increase the gigawatt hours per year? That is the fundamental limiting factor. So in order for, and that will move as fast as the slowest, least lucky element of the whole supply chain. Currently, we see that as being a challenge with lithium. And it's not that, to be clear, it's not that there's a shortage of lithium ore in the world. Lithium is present almost everywhere. It's a very common element. However, you still need to dig up the ore, dig up basically the spodumene or whatever the clay with the lithium, and then you need to go through a whole series of refinement steps, and that's a lot of industrial equipment that's needed to refine lithium ore to lithium that can be used as lithium hydroxide or lithium carbonate in the battery cell. So we think we're going to need to help the industry on this front. But the industry is growing fast, and I'd certainly, encourage entrepreneurs out there who are looking for opportunities to get into the lithium business. The lithium margins right now are practically software margins. I mean, I think it's something. Literally, I think there's a. I mean, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're seeing cases where the spot lithium price is 10 times higher than the cost of extraction. So not like we're talking 90% margins here. Can more people please get into the lithium business? Do you like minting money? Well, the lithium business is for you.
So interesting. So I guess we'll stay tuned to see what happens from that. My second question is, it's impressive to see just a modest increase in cost of goods sold per vehicle, given what we've seen in terms of commodities, actually. And from here, you have a lot of savings opportunities with 4680 cells and the cell manufacturing changes, the anode chemistry, structural packs, gigacastings. Are you suggesting that even those may not be sufficient to offset the inflation that you're seeing, and that you're going to need additional pricing as well, in addition to those specific initiatives that you've called out?
Well, we hope we don't need to increase the pricing further. The current pricing is anticipating what we think is the probable growth in costs. And if that growth in cost does not materialize, we actually may slightly reduce prices. So we don't currently anticipate making significant price increases. But obviously we don't control the macroeconomic environment. If governments keep printing vast amounts of money, and if there are not significant increases in lithium extraction and refinement and the other raw materials, such that everyone's competing for a limited amount of raw materials, then obviously that will drive prices to high levels. So if you have a crystal ball that can tell us what the future is going to be like, we'll adjust accordingly. But the current prices are the current prices are for a vehicle delivered in the future, like 6 to 12 months from now. So this is our best guess.
But I think if you zoom out, right, like as you said, our mission is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. So like we are working with our existing suppliers and others to figure out how to grow all of these raw materials as quickly as possible to not slow down the transition.
Yeah.
And, whether that means we have to get directly involved in some cases or not comes down to the counterparty and their willingness to expand at the rate we think they should be able to expand. And that's similar to what we've done with everything else. Like we built a gigafactory in Reno because it needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so like we will do what needs to be done to not slow down the transition, and affordability is a goal, because if it's unaffordable, it's going to retard the growth of what is inherently a good thing. So we can't have that as an outcome.
Thank you. The next question comes from Pierre Ferragu from New Street Research.
Thanks. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Great. I'd like to ask you some questions about free cash flow. So first, maybe in the long run, Elon, if you look at your performance and your growth model and your growth ambitions, I did the math very quick, and I see you guys sitting on $4 or maybe $500 billion of cash at the end of the decade. And I was wondering if it's something you have given some thoughts about.
That might be like, if inflation keeps going crazy, $500 billion might be like, $20 billion today. I don't know. So, we'll see what $500 billion buys you in a decade, but it might be a lot less. So I don't know if that seems like a lot of cash. I don't know. We'll try to do something useful with it. I mean, Jack, I don't know. It's a very high-class problem, that's for sure.
The way I think we have to take this one step at a time. And so, we have investments that are happening right now to get Austin and Berlin up and running. And then, as Elon mentioned, installing capacity for robotaxi production. And, there's some decisions that, as Elon alluded to, just, to share in the future about what the economic model looks like.
That's them. That's
what
not
the
me.
economic model looks like for robotaxi.
Ooh.
And so, the way Elon and I have discussed this is.
Oh God.
Let's just.
Maybe just everyone just mute if you're.
Yeah, so our focus is, to get to the point where robotaxis are on the road.
God.
Optimus is in use, get the economic model for that dialed in, and then evaluate, the size of cash flows at that point and make decisions then as to what's next.
Okay, Pierre, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I think it
Okay. Let's move on.
all right.
They're mining lithium in
Let's
the
go
back.
to the next one. The next question comes from Trip Chowdhury from Global Equity Research.
Yes.
Thank you. Two questions I have. First is regarding the Cybertruck. And I was wondering, in terms of number of parts, how would Cybertruck compare with a traditional pickup truck in terms of number of parts? The second question I have is on Gigafactory Nevada Sparks. Will we have any production of vehicles in that factory, or all the future production will happen in Giga Austin? Thank you.
I'm not sure if we've actually done a comparison of Cybertruck parts versus regular truck parts. I mean, Lars?
Yeah, I mean, like if you want to go down to depends on what you kind of part, we still have cells and they're, still 1,000 cells. But if we
that shouldn't count.
If we don't count that, the simplicity of our structure is significant versus a traditional, pickup truck or any other vehicle. As we've talked about, their giga castings, we save hundreds of parts there.
I mean, the entire rear kind of half of the car is one casting.
And even still with the Cybertruck and the doors, for example, we have an exoskeleton design where the door is ready to take, and it takes all the side load from impact. So we really have we don't have the door reinforcements, we don't have the crash and shooting beams. So to your point, I haven't counted them because I don't often look back at old technologies to decide how well I'm doing. I check that once in a while, but in general, our architecture is always moving to reduce complexity, reduce parts, and reduce parts count. I would say, ignoring the battery cells, we're probably 20 to 30% less.
That's good. That's a good amount.
All right.
Cybertruck question was answered.
Thank you. Let's go to the next. Nevada.
Oh, Nevada. Do we expect to expand? Yeah, we do expect to expand Giga Nevada. There's a lot of room for expansion there, and we do expect to increase output from Nevada.
Semi.
But the by far the biggest increase in output will be from Giga Texas.
Build these in Nevada.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Alex Potter from Piper Sandler.
Good question.
Alex, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, Martin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So first question I had was the extent to which other plants outside of China are insulated from any further upstream supply bottlenecks that we may have in China. Obviously, if this COVID lockdown thing gets out of hand, clearly that's going to continue impacting Shanghai. But is there a point at which it could actually also impact other facilities?
Yeah, if it were to continue, but there are some parts that are sourced in China that apply worldwide, and that would impact production elsewhere. But all indications are that we're Giga Shanghai is back in production at fairly high levels already, and so are our suppliers. So we don't think this is going to be a big deal.
Okay, thanks. Second question. Obviously, the higher profitability you guys have been able to experience over the last couple of quarters, a lot of that is reflecting sort of quote unquote real improvements. Another part of it is because we're no longer paying you, Elon, as much as we were. So I'm wondering, the extent to which you and the board are in the process of contemplating another one of these long-term compensation packages, which in the past have seemed to work out quite well. Thanks.
There are no discussions currently underway for incremental compensation for me.
Okay, it's kind of a weird
Thank
question.
you. The next question comes from Colin Langham from Wells Fargo.
Oh, great. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Just to follow up, sorry to keep going on the raw material issue on the battery side, but obviously seems pretty important. Yeah, how quickly can raw material supply be built? Because my understanding, it takes many years to build that out. So are we just sort of when do you think we see a lithium shortage or a nickel shortage? And is there even enough time to build that sort of mining capacity in place? And then related, how quickly can you switch to like LFP, for the nickel issue?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the LFP question. Like, and it says so in our letter, but like half of our products were LFP last quarter, which shows how quickly we were able to respond to, well, honestly, it wasn't because of a raw material shortage, but just because it seemed like the right thing to do. We could change our cathode chemistry. And there's more to be done on the cathode side, and we are actively pursuing it to give us substitution flexibility in response to market conditions between the other cathodes that are out there that can be competitive in our vehicles, of which there are many options. So, we I guess what I would say is specifically on the cathode side, like flexibility is the way we're going to achieve this, and not all of the materials that go into cathodes are actually, first of all, hard to secure, like through mining or refining. And second of all, in many cases are like very plentiful already, like huge scale. And, if all of the batteries in the world use those cathodes, it's less than a 1% increase in total annual output. So that's the cathode side. I think Elon already spent a lot of time talking about lithium. It really depends on the resource. Some resources, like just getting rocks out of the ground, expanding the amount of rocks that you're getting out of the ground is, maybe a little bit of paperwork and some additional sort of blasting and trucking operations. The refining is maybe where there's, it's a little bit more chunky to bring it online, but also the refining it's not like an oil refinery. It's a much smaller operation to refine lithium out of spodumene or liquid, like a brine or a salt pond evaporation. So, you're talking about a time scale of 1 to 2 years, and it's not like we haven't been talking to all of the lithium suppliers out there for many years. They have a lot of projects already in the pipeline to come online this year and next. Some of what's going on in the lithium market this year doesn't actually have truth to bear to the fundamentals of supply and demand, which is also a little frustrating. But yeah, if we look past this year or next year and into 2030, when we need 15 to 20 terawatt hours of this stuff to, get on the growth trajectory, stay on the growth trajectory we're on, we need everybody to do more in the lithium space than they currently are. I don't know if that answers the question.
Step it up, people.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So let's go to the last question from Mark Delaney from Goldman Sachs.
This is why.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you very much for taking the question. I was hoping you could comment on your latest thoughts about potentially opening up the charging network in the U.S. to non-Tesla owners. It's certainly really important to have a good experience for Tesla owners in terms of wait times at charging stalls. But if Tesla is able to have enough capacity, it could be a really good way to bring other vehicle owners into the Tesla network, perhaps help Tesla to sustain its network benefits and maybe make more people likely to buy Tesla vehicles in the future.
Yeah, as Elon has said, and as we've publicly committed, yeah, we do plan to provide third-party vehicle access in all over the world, not just in Europe, where our original pilot was. And we are working on solutions in North America, which is a little bit more problematic with our connector being different than others. But we are moving in that direction. I don't know if you want to add.
Yeah, I think there's nothing more to be said on that, but we want to do the right thing with respect to the whole system.
And we're going faster on adding chargers.
Absolutely.
Right? With the growth of the cars that we're producing and then anticipating what Drew is discussing, overall charger capacity is really important. And so the pace of our investments in supercharging has accelerated.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's helpful. And for my second question, could you share any more details on Tesla insurance in particular as you're rolling it out in more states? Are there any metrics you can share on what take rates have been like, and how do profitability margins on the insurance offering compare to the corporate average? Thank you.
It's good. Good.
So we just launched Tesla Insurance for real-time insurance in Virginia, Colorado, and Oregon earlier this week. Maybe one stat that I'll share. So Texas is our longest standing real-time insurance market. But based upon the information that we have, Tesla is the second largest insurer of Teslas in the state of Texas.
Wow.
And possibly by the end of this quarter, maybe early next quarter, we'll be the largest insurer of Teslas. And so, the customer reception to this has been quite positive. And I was reading social media on Monday after we launched in the 3 new states. A lot of folks were reporting their stories of saving quite substantial amounts of money relative to their previous insurance. And so we're quite encouraged by that, and we're working as quickly as we can to get to 80% of customers having access to a Tesla insurance product by the end of this year in the United States, at which point we'll pivot our attention to expansion outside of the US. The other thing I'll say on insurance is with these 3 new states, the model is different because we are now the underwriter and we are also now holding the risk. And so with those states, we are a fully vertically integrated provider of insurance from systems and financials. With respect to the financials of the program, it's still very early. And so, as the program gets more scale, happy to share more information on that.
Sounds good.
And one side note is that we are seeing that having real-time feedback for driving habits is actually resulting in Tesla owners driving the cars in a safer way. So, because they can see they get real-time feedback on, okay, this is affecting my insurance rate or it isn't, and so when people can see a real-time score and realize, oh, if I make the following changes in my driving habits, then I pay less in insurance, then they have a very a real-time feedback loop for safer driving and an incentive to do so. So it is actually, what we're seeing is it is causing people to drive their cars in a safer manner, which is also not good.
It's safer on average, what we see in the data, to Elon's point, and premiums are lower. We see that in the take rate data. We have extremely high retention for customers who experience the product. And I think I've talked about this in the past, but this has become a real passion program for us.
Yeah.
For these benefits, it's bigger than just the economics. We're trying to do a good thing here for our customers, save people money and make the roads a little bit safer.
Yeah, I think it improves just overall macroeconomic efficiency. It's also a feedback loop for Tesla because we see if there is a crash, large or small, we sort of see exactly what that cost, and now we think about how can we change the design of the car or the software in order to minimize the probability of that accident. Because most accidents are minor, but how do we have those accidents occur less frequently, and how do we make the repair associated with that accident super fast? Like aspirationally, it'd be like same-day repair for a collision. Which is just night and day difference compared to sometimes having to wait for a month while insurance claims are settled and figured out, and because Tesla is also doing collision repair.
But yeah, the feedback loop is instant.
Yeah.
Right. So, we do claims management in-house, And so we received the notification that there's an accident. We work to prepare the estimate, and we can, with the support of our customers, use our collision centers to do the repair.
Yeah.
And so it's, full end-to-end visibility and all of that. To Elon's point, we can then identify areas of cost inefficiency, feed those back to engineering teams or elsewhere, software teams, actually improve the product, which lowers the cost of insurance, improves reliability of the product. So it's a full circle.
Yeah, and it's like basically the customer experience is just vastly better because if there's an accident, there's no argument. We repair it immediately, and this is as compared to arguing with an insurance company and then a claims adjuster and then a collision repair center, and this can be a nightmare basically. So we want to try to turn a nightmare into a dream with Tesla Insurance.
Turn a nightmare.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this quarter. So thank you very much for all your great questions, and we'll speak to you again in 3 months.
3 months.
Thank you.
All right. Music is back. Here's hoping I have my car for the next earnings call. That would be nice. 3 months from now, it'll be May, June, July. Yeah, that would be in my estimated delivery window 3 months from now. So hopefully I'm part of Q2 deliveries. That would be exciting. Fairly typical uneventful earnings call. I mean, I was kind of surprised by the timeline they were willing to drop on the robotaxi thing. I mean, considering how many timelines they've already missed with delivering FSD, I'm still shocked that they want to put their foot down on a timeline and say like, oh yeah, we hope to build dedicated robotaxi vehicles in 2024. It's like, really? Wow, you're feeling awfully confident, aren't you? But I am personally very, very shocked that after all of this, we still do not have any updates to the Model Y configurator. I thought maybe they would update it with the shareholder deck. Maybe they would update it with the earnings call. But yeah, it's 3 months from now, it'll just be an empty chair with Drew in his car doing donuts. I won't be doing donuts. I'll be driving as safe as possible. But yeah, I'm confused as to why Elon was like, I'm not going to be on earnings calls anymore. Wasn't on one, then came back because he wanted to provide a product roadmap update. Didn't provide a product roadmap update, and now he's back to doing just the regular like run-of-the-mill earnings calls where there's not too much to discuss or announce. So it's like, okay, fine. I guess if Elon wants to be on, he can be on. But yeah, like for one, talking about bringing 2170 cells to the Model Y in Texas as well. I assume that means they're wanting to build a long-range Model Y in Texas that is identical to the Fremont-made Model Y. I think they can do that. The EPA has certain guidelines and rules about like different Model Y configurations and different regulations. I don't know what they're waiting for with the Model Y. I don't either. They said they started production in April and, they did their first deliveries. I've been refreshing the configurator this whole time and nothing has changed. They have not updated the Model Y and it's been 2 weeks since the last, since the first deliveries began. So do donuts affect your safety score? Aggressive turning? Probably, yeah. Although where I live, your driving behavior does not impact your insurance rate. California has a law against that. I don't know why. I wish they would change it because I would absolutely be willing to drive slower or safer in order to get lower insurance rates because I already drive pretty slow and pretty safe. I'm not really an aggressive driver. I don't like performance. I don't like flooring it. I don't do turns harshly. So I'll just drive really, really carefully and have a low insurance rate, but they don't do that in California. I wish someone had asked when exact specs and pricing will be announced on Cybertruck and when reservations would start being converted into orders. Someone could have asked that, but I don't think Tesla has an answer. I'm one of those believers that they don't have a lot of information on these things, and it's like, if they're not telling you something, it's probably because they don't know. I don't think they have a price or a timeline or a date in mind as to when Cybertrucks would start being converted, but the main reason I would not get your hopes up is because in the shareholder deck, They did not update the Cybertruck to say under construction, which is one of the stages you have to go in. Let me turn this off here. All these say status in production now. So they have Texas, Berlin, Shanghai, and California, not to mention Nevada, which isn't on here. All of these are in production, and they don't want to say the current run rate because it's very early in the ramp. But Cybertruck, this would need to change to say under construction. For usually, with the Model Y at least, it would say that for 2 or 3 quarters before official deliveries began. So the fact that that says in development and not under construction, to me says Cybertruck production is not happening within the next 2 or 3 quarters, which is why it's like, okay, there's a chance they may start delivering Cybertruck next year, but if they do, I think it's going to be really late in the year. It's going to be like December 31st, 11:59 p.m. But considering I think there will still be supply chain issues and a lot of demand backlog for their current vehicles well into 2023, considering they're already selling vehicles that aren't going to deliver in 2023 right now, and I think people will continue ordering Teslas well into the rest of the year. I mean, look at the freaking Super Bowl effect. How many people bought a Tesla despite Tesla not running any ads at the Super Bowl? So I think there's a good chance Cybertruck could still get delayed into 2024, which is a bummer, but ultimately they'll deliver more vehicles just by prioritizing what they have, which is I'm kind of like, Tesla is so focused on their mission statement to like a fault. They're so focused they will not budge and give us something like a Roadster or a Semi or a Cybertruck, which is something we'd really like to see deliver and on the road and being used. But does somebody in the chat really want that pickup? Oh yeah. Most people following Tesla want more info on the Cybertruck. It's definitely got the most amount of demand. I hate the 2-step process in a gas car going from stop to moving. You let go of the brakes, you go up like 3 miles per hour, and then you start accelerating with the gas pedal. EV, you just use one. No, I agree. That's much better. I've been in Teslas. I've driven Teslas. I know what the instant torque is like. I've accelerated inside them before. I get the feeling. I know why people like it, but it's not something I pursue personally. I do not need to floor it. I do not need to accelerate quickly, and I've done it. It's not like I've never accelerated in a Tesla before. I've done 0 to 60s in Model Y Mike's car, and that's 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds, and my Model 3 is going to be 0 to 60 in 5.8. So it'll be even slower, but I definitely don't plan on flooring it all the time, and I don't care to get into that. Even if I had the money for it, it'd be a waste. Let's see. Build everything and anything they want in Texas. That's in my opinion. Sure, why not? How will Cybertruck tomfoolery affect the insurance? Because I'm going to make it fly. I'm guessing not in a good way. Seems too much like a concept car to me. Tesla usually does a pretty decent job at making the concept very accurate to the production model, at least in terms of design. Like, no, the pricing is not accurate, but the Cybertruck that they showed at Cyber Rodeo is, I think, incredibly close to what will be mass-produced, which they don't even have a picture of the Cybertruck in here. Isn't that annoying? If I pull up a picture. Cybertruck. Owners Club. At Cyber Rodeo. Let me pull it up here. They had a nice picture. Why you gotta hide images? What? Only videos? Oh, more. Don't hide images from me, Google. Okay, this one. Yeah, they rolled it out on stage. It's got the mirrors. It's got the windshield wiper. It's got no door handles, like they said. So that one they rolled out on stage is, I'm fairly confident, pretty much spot on to the production model. My mom's gas car has hold like Tesla's, but it still feels not smooth because you press the gas and it takes a second to unhook the brakes since it's holding the brake. Oh, I got you. I'd love to see Tesla competing in motorsport. Maybe they could do that with the Cyberquad. Yeah, I'm fine with you thinking it's ugly. There's already 2 million reservations. We don't need demand for the Cybertruck to get any higher. There's enough people who want one. Sitting at a light without having to have my foot on the brake was mind blowing. Oh yeah, I love that. Um, Absolutely looking forward to that. I want Cybertruck for myself at 38 years old. I'm making that expensive pill to swallow better by assuming the truck could last until I don't drive myself around any longer. Yeah, I do think the exoskeleton is going to age incredibly well, as will the cells inside the vehicle. So, yeah, it'll age very, very well. I think it could easily last people 40, 50 years. Just because of the batteries on the inside, and there's no paint to worry about, and you don't need things in the door to hold the structure together because the skeleton is the structure. So it's not a body on frame design, and they'll use single piece castings, they'll use the structural pack. Um, my excuse, if the excuse for everything vehicle, end of the world, B8 truck, midlife crisis, buying my first house, all of it. Well, buying a house is a good thing. That's not a crisis, but yeah, I'm very excited for it. I want to make content on it, even though I'm not planning on owning one, just because I can't justify it. I don't have a need for a pickup truck. My lifestyle would not utilize the pickup's advantages. I also don't like driving larger vehicles. I've driven SUVs, I've driven pickup trucks. At my old job, I used to work at a mandarin ranch. I had to drive this big F-350 around pretty frequently, and I always hated driving it. And I've been driving a sedan for the past 5 years now. I think 5. And that's my favorite car to drive just because it's so easy to park, and I feel nimble, and I feel small, like I'm not going to hit anything. And it just feels like I have a good indication on the size, and I feel fine. Um, all that's missing is kids. Yeah. But yeah, I still think it's a really cool vehicle. Same with the semi, and I would love to check one out. And I have got tons of friends with Cybertrucks on order, and they all know I'm going to come out to them wherever they are as soon as they take delivery, so I can check it out and make videos on it. But Smarter Than You says, I hate the way it looks, but it's definitely unique, and I love unique, and it should last a very long time. That's enough to buy the uber dorky shiny door stopper. Well, I don't really think any pickup truck looks pretty. I wouldn't describe the Cybertruck as pretty, but I wouldn't describe the F-150 as pretty, or the Rivian as pretty, or the Hummer as pretty. They're all trucks. They're meant to be utility vehicles. They're not supposed to be beautiful. To me, it's like, leave the beauty for the Roadster. Leave the aesthetic vehicles for the high price, Model S Plaid, and, make the expensive luxury sedans. You can make those look pretty. But if it's a truck, I think the uglier the better. And in that way, why I understand the function behind the Cybertruck, making it simple and making it durable and making it practical and utility focused, is like, yeah, in that regard, it's beautiful for what it needs to be. But I can absolutely describe it as ugly, but it's in the best possible way. It's ugly in a beautiful way, in my view. Nick will still be stuck with me at his door as soon as it comes. I want to see and drive the Cybertruck IRL. I'm tall and I'd enjoy the ease of entry. Yeah, of course. Go fast enough. You don't need to wipe the windshield. No, you definitely do. Have you seen the Tesla cameras when they get bugs and crap up on the windshield and the cameras can't see very well? It literally uses the windshield wiper to wash off the cameras. Aptera might not need a windshield wiper, but they have one on it. So the Aptera is so aerodynamic, hardly any bugs will actually splat on the windshield because they just get caught in the wind stream as it's speeding. So the Aptera is probably closer to that. Cybertruck is not as aerodynamic as an Aptera, that's for sure. But before we go, I want to hear your guys' predictions. What do you think Tesla is waiting for with the Model Y configurator? When are we going to be able to order a standard range Model Y? If it wasn't the shareholder deck and it wasn't the earnings call, what's the holdup? What are we waiting for? Because I can't figure it out. Do you think they're waiting for the month of May, or because Giga Texas is building Model Ys? Go check out Jeff Roberts' channel or watch Joe Tegmeyer. They're all posting videos of Giga Texas. They haven't stopped producing cars. They have semi trucks in the logistics slots that are loading up Model Ys. It's like, what are they doing here? What's the plan? Is demand for the Model Y so high that they can just sell it to employees and there's enough demand to just keep Giga Texas producing it? I'm sure they're selling them to employees, but Like, how long are they going to keep that going? Scott says, I think one random day, way too long from now, at like 2:07, it will just randomly appear. I think Scott is correct. Let's hold them to that. 2:07. They're waiting for May 4th, Star Wars Day. That's probably it. Waiting for a certain production rate, probably selling most to employees. Yeah. I'm sure they're selling to employees. I just wonder how many they're selling to employees. I appreciated that about the Model Y compared to most SUVs I've driven. It felt somewhat compact on the inside, but also not too small. Like you said, felt easier to maneuver around turns and stuff. Yeah, I get the feeling because I know people that like driving big trucks and like driving big vehicles because they feel like king of the road, and I understand why people like that, but it's not me. It's like I can understand why someone says their favorite color is green, but it's not my favorite color. It's the same thing. No updates on the Semi, unfortunately. They're probably building up a backstock to ease ramp and demand. Yeah, that's a good point. They could just be stockpiling so that when the orders do come piling in, they can deliver them fairly quickly. But yeah, it's kind of weird how far Tesla has gotten. Like, I feel like at this point we're gonna watch Doug DeMero and Bjorn Nyland do videos on the 4680 Model Y before they update the configurator. They're gonna be like, they're gonna be like, hey guys, today we're reviewing the 4680 Model Y. Or we're gonna be like, today we're gonna do a charging test on the 4680 Model Y. How do you order this? Oh, I don't know. Tesla hasn't put it on the website yet. It's like, bruh. Mr. Roberts, M. Roberts says, looked at Model Y order page source, see reference to standard range rear-wheel drive, but nothing about all-wheel drive. Well, I've seen other Tesla Twitter accounts post about source code. They have added code to the website about this all-wheel drive Model Y. The only information they haven't baked into the website is the price. But they have entered the range of 279 miles, and they have entered the option for an all-wheel drive standard range. That's been in the source code for the past couple weeks, but they just haven't gone public with it. So weird that after the earnings call, we still don't know when it's coming up. Yeah, Sandy's going to tear one down, and we still don't have the order page. I think they're just trying to gauge the Osborne effect. I suppose so. I think regardless of when the configurator goes live, there's going to be some people that back out on the Fremont orders. Like, right? There's no way to avoid that. I just know of way too many people that have ordered a long-range Model Y, waiting and waiting to find out if they got a Texas model, and then as soon as it's confirmed on the website, no, this is the one you have to get for it to be from Texas, they're all going to back out on their orders. Even if it's more expensive, and even if the range sucks, there's going to be some people perhaps finalizing one or two special paint colors to release. The problem with that is Fremont's not ready for it. So it'd be like, okay, you can get Crimson Red and Mercury Silver, but only if you get the standard range. Those paint colors go away if you opt for long range, which is kind of weird. Tesla is underrated for changing the car industry and the way we live. They pushed EVs to the top. Yeah, as highly as Tesla is rated, I do have to kind of agree. I think they're still underrated in how they've influenced the automotive market, because a lot of people just think, well, everything was going electric anyway, and, Tesla just had a little bit of a head start, but the competitors are coming. Ford has some options. VW is doing. It's like the only reason all of these other companies are doing EVs now at the scale that they are is because they know Tesla has done it, and Tesla has proven you can do it at scale and profitably. And now that all these legacy automakers and all these startup companies have seen Tesla's success, they're like, okay, we know it's possible. Before Tesla was around, all these automakers were not convinced that you could successfully sell EVs at scale. And there was a lot of people that were not convinced there was even demand for electric vehicles. It's like, you could try to make EVs, but they would be too heavy, or they would be too ugly, or they wouldn't use gas, and the range would be too low. Nobody wants EVs, even though it's technically possible to make them. And it wasn't until Tesla entered the picture that all of these other companies can seek the valuations they get. Like, the only reason Rivian has such a high market cap, and the only reason Lucid has such a high market cap, is because of Tesla's success. If Tesla did not exist, I don't think you would see that many people investing in Rivian or Lucid. Their companies would not be looked at as safe bets or stocks that you would want to buy, because there's unproven market. It's like, we don't know. We don't know if that'll work out. EVs are expensive. I don't think they can do it profitably. So Tesla did a lot of the hard work in convincing of the general public, both for consumers and investors. And now that Tesla has powered through that convincing stage, everyone else is catching up now. They're like, oh, we can do it too. We can do EV. We do it as well. It's like, that's, I think, the door that Tesla has opened that wasn't open before they came out. So, yeah. I'd be okay with that with the paint colors. I don't think Tesla would be, though. Yeah, I agree. I think the configurator would be kind of confusing if standard range unlocked a couple colors. Elon said crimson was his color and that new blue, right? I don't remember him talking about the new blue, but there were references in Tesla code or paperwork somewhere that referenced a new version of blue, but we haven't really seen what it looks like. Yeah, everyone laughed at Elon at every step until the ramp of the Model Y. Yep. Sean Williams says, did your estimated delivery date get pushed back today? My delivery date still has not changed. I can double check it here live on the air, but so far it has never changed once. I keep waiting for it to do something, but I'm checking my account right now. Obviously it has personal info, so I'm not going to show it, but you'll have to take my word for it. Okay, I'm hitting the manage button. Yep, sorry, same exact delivery. July 7th to August 4th. Has not budged, has not moved at all. So sorry. Nothing. As soon as it does move, I will tell you. I'll post about it on Twitter or on YouTube. I'm gonna make a big deal about it, even if it moves a day. My delivery was moved up to July 6th instead of 7th. I've been watching that thing like a hawk. In the Giga Austin Model Y teardowns begin, the battery pack will seem tiny with 4680s. I don't think the battery pack will be tiny because the EPA says that it is still a very heavy vehicle. I just think that the watt hours per cell is smaller than they could be. Tesla should make black a free paint color. It used to be, but they went with white and demand went way up since they switched it to white. So you need a YouTube channel with 40,000 subs for the date to not change. I guess. I don't know how they would know. I mean, I don't get invited to Cyber Rodeo, so I'm not convinced I get any kind of special treatment from my YouTube channel. But anything new announced? Little things here and there, nothing huge. Probably the biggest news for me from the shareholder deck was them saying that later this year they plan to build Model Ys from Giga Texas with non-structural 2170 cells. That's not necessarily a good thing. It's probably a little bit disappointing for some, but that's news to me. I thought that Giga Texas, they've started with 4680, so I figured all Teslas out of that factory would be 4680. Now they're saying, no, we actually have intentional plans to offer 2170 cells with Model Y, which I assume is a long range or a performance or something out of Texas. Just kind of weird. Says something about how they're probably keeping 4680 for lower range vehicles for the time being. And they also said that they plan to ramp production of a robotaxi in 2024, which is very ambitious. Not that you could introduce a new model by then, but I think it's ambitious to say you'll have the software of FSD and the legality of robotaxis figured out by then. I'm not convinced, personally. I don't think it's going to happen in 2024. But why isn't Tesla using FSD to load ships yet? I don't know. It's probably a complicated software issue because not every car has FSD loaded on it, so you'd have to load FSD on and have a special algorithm for cars, parking themselves, and then you would turn it off before it gets delivered or something. I don't know. It probably doesn't save that much money or time because it's probably like one or two guys that transport all the vehicles onto a ship, and the amount of money you'd save by doing that is nothing. Giga Shanghai has got black as standard. That's true. It was also interesting wording that they said volume production of Cybertruck next year, not just production. Yeah, it's interesting that they chose those words, but I would not put too much faith in that, meaning that we're getting Cybertruck sooner rather than later. I'm still like Cybertruck, if it is ready, best case scenario, it's going to be like December of 2023. It's going to be near the end of the year. I wonder if they will specify when ordering Model Y structural / non-structural. I wouldn't want to buy a non-structural Model Y, but hey, maybe that's just me. I don't think they will specify structural, but I do think in the shareholders deck, in the earnings calls and stuff, it's going to be pretty obvious that the standard range Model Y all-wheel drive, that one is structural, and the long range is not structural. That's using 2170s, as well as the performance. That's 2170s. So I used to think that once 4680s ramped up and they were at higher volume, then they would start with like a performance Model Y with higher range because it has more 4680s or more energy dense 4680s. But now after this earnings call in the shareholder deck, I'm like, no, it sounds like 4680s are staying in the standard range. And they believe that they can ramp Model Ys faster by using 2170 cells than 4680, which to me basically means that 4680 ramp is going to be pretty slow. Which does not mean good for the Cybertruck production ramp. Like all the reasons they delayed the Cybertruck till next year, I think those reasons are still going to be present. There will be supply chain shortages. There will be overwhelming demand. All of those things I think will still be a problem in a year. And that's why I don't think the Cybertruck is like guaranteed for next year, but it's possible if depending on the ramp and demand and things. Do you really think Roadster will be ready in 2023 as well as Semi? Not confidently. I think it makes sense. Like, if Giga Texas is going to produce all the 4680s they need, then what are the 4680s at Cato Road doing? You know, like if they're building lots of cells at Cato Road, what are you going to put those in, right? Like Fremont is screaming as fast as it can with Model 3, Model Y, S, and X production. They're building all those vehicles as quickly as possible, but now you have all these 4680 cells at Cato Road. What do those go into? My thought, either they're stockpiling them for Giga Berlin or they're shipping them to Texas because Texas doesn't have enough. Or my thought was, you know, you're already building the Plaid powertrain at Fremont for the Model S and X. They're already building those motors. Let's just designate a small section of Fremont for Roadster production. It can be very low volume because every vehicle it's competing with is extremely low volume, like the Rimac Nevera. They're building like one a month or one a week or something incredibly slowly. So as long as you build like 2 a month, that's a start. And, you know, everybody who takes delivery of a Roadster is going to make a crap ton of videos on it. It would be great for the brand, and the wait is finally over. Of course, it doesn't really help Tesla right now because they're not demand constrained. But I'm just tired of people complaining about the Roadster. There's so many people online that are like, where's the Roadster, though? Roadster's not ready yet. And all these people in the referral program that's like, I don't have my free Roadster, Elon, so I don't believe you. Or Elon can't do anything else until he delivers my free Roadster. So I'm like, can we just like rip off this Band-Aid and put the 4680 batteries in a Roadster and, you know, give it the SpaceX package and don't deliver a ton of them, but just start delivery so you can just say, okay, we've delivered the Roadster, get off our backs. And that would be a big relief, and it would definitely get a lot of eyes on Tesla. It would probably unnecessarily boost the stock. I bet the stock would go up even though it doesn't really mean much. But yeah, just start delivering Roadsters to the referral people so that they can stop complaining. Here's Marquez. Here's What's Inside. Here's the random guy on Twitter's Roadster. Done. Yeah, Andy Sly, Marquez, Dan from What's Inside. Give them all their Roadsters and call it a day. Just say, nope, that's it. Is that my Trump imitation? That's a pretty bad Trump imitation. No, it wasn't. That's my I want my free car imitation, which there's a lot of people still doing that. Let's see. Any annual production hit due to Shanghai shutdown, or can they catch up? Yeah, they did say, they did mention on the call that they expected the shutdowns to impact deliveries. But Elon said, you know, we're back up and running at Shanghai. It's not at full capacity, but they expect it to come back to full capacity fairly quickly. And they expect to exceed 1.5 million deliveries this year. That's still an astounding growth. That's more than 50% growth over last year. So that's good. That means they're still expecting really, really high deliveries. But this is why I try to keep expectations realistic, is because I know a lot of super Tesla bulls out there that are like, Tesla's doing 2 million, you know, they could hit 2 million vehicles this year. They're going to hit 2 million in 2022. And it's like, if you keep your expectations that high, sure, it would be kind of nice if it ends up happening and then you get to say, I was right, I told everyone and I was right and none of them believed me. But more often than not, that's not what happens. Usually they end up not delivering that and you go, oh, well, it wasn't as good as I thought. And I think that takes away from the accomplishment. 1.5 million EVs delivered in a 12-month block is astounding. That's insanely good, and that's a huge milestone. And if they hit that, that's wonderful, especially with a shutdown. Um, yeah, workers are sleeping in the factory at Shanghai. That's because of government mandates. They require closed loop systems, basically minimal contact, so people aren't leaving the factory and coming back. But that's a very common thing in China. That sounds crazy here in the US, but in China, there's all kinds of factories. The phone, whatever phone you're using right now to watch this, or whatever laptop, whatever tablet you're using, was probably built by a worker who slept at the factory. That's just, they have housing, they provide food, there's a cafeteria, that's very common practice in Chinese manufacturing. And the alternative was for them to not come back to work at all. Whereas there's food shortages and there's people not being fed and they're not getting paid because they can't go to work. So I assure you, for the Chinese workers, like if it's between living at the factory with their provided housing and their food and working there, or not working at all and being locked at home and you can't go anywhere, they would much rather work at the factory. But yeah, it sounds really bad in the headlines in the US because that's not something we really do here. Giga Texas and Giga Berlin will offset the Shanghai downtime. Nice to diversify locations. I don't think it necessarily offsets it because Giga Shanghai was the highest producing Tesla factory in the world. It was outproducing Fremont, and Giga Texas and Giga Berlin are still at fairly low run rates. Rumors right now are saying like 350 a week, which is, better than Lucid, better than Rivian, that's for sure. But yeah, definitely not as good as Shanghai was. Shanghai was at an extremely high run rate, and it was shut down for like over a month. Or close to a month. And Berlin and Texas are at very, very low volume. So it doesn't completely offset it, but yeah, it helps a little bit. I wonder what gets pushed back faster, Cybertruck release date or my hairline? I guess we'll see. Hopefully your hairline? Sorry, there's no hopefully in that case. Yeah, Ezra's asking the same question I'm asking. When will Model Y appear in the configurator? I don't know. I cannot figure that out. It feels like it should have been today, and it's still not there. Are you going to do something like monthly update videos? Any type of new information on my Model 3, I'll be happy to report. I don't know if monthly will have enough changes, but yeah, I'm planning on documenting everything from delivery day to paperwork to road tripping to charging to degradation to tire wear, everything I possibly can cover with it. I plan on filming all my videos inside it. So you guys will be sick of my Model 3 probably a couple months after I bought it. You've been like, okay, Drew, we get it. You've seen enough of this car. But yeah, Scott's convinced it'll be 207 on a random weekday. I think that's a good guess. They're just going to do it at some random time. What is the SpaceX thrusters for the Roadster? They're cold gas thrusters. They put on the Falcon 9 rockets to help orient it as it's re-entering the atmosphere. They're going to put one of those cold gas thrusters in the Roadster so it can do 0 to 60 in like 1.1 second. It's insane. Very bullish record quarter. I would say that from institutions POV, the move to robotaxi is seen as a highly risky move since FSD is not solved yet. Yeah, I personally don't think they're going to start volume production of the robotaxi but before the software is done. It says a lot about, oh wow, they're so confident in the software, but like Elon even said on this earnings call, they've thought they were close to solving FSD many times and then they weren't. So the fact that they've hit so many local maximums, I think should tell Tesla, don't start building those robotaxis until the software absolutely works and you know for a fact it's going to work reliably and safely. And right now, I don't think they know that. So it's easy right now to say like, oh yeah, in a couple of years we'll start mass production of robotaxis, but I don't think that means like they're going to start building out an assembly line and start making casting presses before the software is ready. I don't think they'll do that. Maybe they will. I don't know. It could end up being really bad. But there are companies like, Zoox and Waymo that are running geo-fenced robotaxis in San Francisco and Chandler, Arizona, and they're toying around with it. Tesla might want to do something like that with very, very low use of just like, let's build a couple hundred robo-taxis and use them in the Fremont area, see how they do. And they probably would have shadow drivers behind them ready to take over or ready to control. I don't know how they take over, though, because there's no steering wheel or pedals. So maybe it's a software override. You go on the screen and you're like, oh, go this way. Or there's like a joystick that you plug in and control it with an Xbox controller or something like that. No, Elon does not need to sell Tesla stock to buy Twitter. You can borrow against his SpaceX stock or use other cash. I don't think he will personally, but no big deal. If it goes down, then it's on sale. It doesn't hurt the long-term future of the company. But anyway, this has been a very long stream, so I appreciate you all for tuning in and watching and listening to the earnings call to me and watching the shareholder deck drop. I apologize if there wasn't tremendously new information. But this is why I primarily enjoy doing it live, because edited video would not be that interesting. So reacting to it in real time with you guys is the most fun for me. Sorry. One last question from Ivan. He says, you think they'll redesign the Roadster's interior? They revealed model has had the vertical screen orientation for years, and all Teslas now have screen horizontal. Personally, yes. I do think that the Roadster, we have not seen the production model. They've referenced several times that the production model is going to be way better than the prototype. So yeah, I think it will probably have a landscape display, probably something that, the original prototype still had gear stocks. Yeah, they're tiny. If you look them up here, I think I can find them. Tesla Roadster steering yoke or wheel, I guess. I'll flip this around so you can see it. But right behind the yoke, there were these tiny little paddles, but they were gear stocks. And obviously those have been removed on the Model S and X steering yokes. So I'm pretty confident that there's at least some updates. This display is not practical at all, especially for Tesla Theater or any games and that kind of thing. Maybe people don't want to play games in the Roadster. Here's a better angle of it. It's got the gear stock on the back. So this has all got to change, I'm sure. They're going to update a bunch of stuff before it goes into production. But yeah, anyway, thank you for the questions, and I'll see you guys